Chapter 780. Inside the same hall as before, Xueli was waiting quietly while Enlinger was nowhere to be seen. Yu Mo brought Yang Kai here and respectfully reported his arrival before standing aside and watching with cold eyes. Xueli nodded lightly before glancing over at Yang Kai and saying lightly, "I've raised you for so long, have you prepared yourself to create some value for me?" Yang Kai frowned. "What are you talking about?" Xueli chuckled lightly before standing up and softly saying, "I told you, my sand city doesn't raise trash. Since I allowed you to live, naturally I won't raise you for nothing. A first-order transcendent, among the human race, reaching such a cultivation at your age is not an easy feat. You should be a core disciple of some great force, right?" Yang Kai didn't comment and didn't answer. "But that has nothing to do with me. I don't care what force you come from. Since you've fallen into my hands, you need to be obedient and do whatever I tell you to do. If you dare disobey in the slightest, you know the consequences." Saying so, a cold light flashed across Xueli's beautiful eyes. "Then what do you want me to do now?" Yang Kai asked in a deep voice. "Kill. Or be killed." Xueli chuckled, waving her hand. "Yu Mo, tell him in detail, it's time for him to make an appearance." Xueli sat back down in her chair and lazily reclined as she stared at Yang Kai. Yu Mo stood in place and declared, "The land around my sand city is barren and Master Xueli's other territories aren't very rich, even the world energy here isn't. On top of that, this place is adjacent to the Yellow Sand Sea and there are no merchants passing through here. It stands to reason that Master Xueli's territory should be very poor. Is that not the case?" Yang Kai tilted his head and looked at him. Yu Mo smiled faintly. "Not only is that not the case, it is the exact opposite. My sand city's riches are incomparable to any other city in the demon land. The amount of wealth that flows in and out of here every year is unimaginable." Yang Kai raised his eyebrows in surprise. Yu Mo looked at Yang Kai smugly. He originally thought that this kid would ask why. But even after waiting for a long time, he still didn't say anything. Feeling bored, he pursed his lips and explained, "Because my sand city has a place that can attract all kinds of people from the demon land, and this place is Sand City's biggest source of income. Even the other 3 demon general will send people to this place." "Oh." Yang Kai's interest was piqued. "What kind of place can attract so many people?" "Death Arena." Yu Mo grinned. "To put it simply, a cultivator with a similar cultivation level would enter the place and fight to the death. Those master beings would bet a large amount of crystal stones or resources on one person based on their own judgment and preferences. If that person wins, they would be able to reap a certain amount of benefits. Since the odds are different, the profits obtained will also be different. If one's luck is good, it is extremely possible to obtain a profit that is several times or more than 10 times. Isn't this a gamble?" "It's a gamble. The dealer is your sand city, right? If that's the case, you'll always be the winner." Yang Kai smiled. "We also need to cultivate, and to do so we need resources. Our territory is poor, so we can only find a way to take them from the pockets of those master beings. You need me to fight to the death, right?" Originally, there were a few people here. But recently they were all killed, causing us to lose a lot of crystal stones. You're a first-order transcendent. Although there's nothing interesting about fighting, as long as we operate properly, we can still recover a lot of our losses." Yu Mo nodded slightly. "Then what benefits do I get?" Yang Kai asked. "You want benefits?" Yu Mo heard this and was startled. "Of course, I'm gambling with my life. Do you think I don't get any benefits?" Yang Kai said matter-of-factly. "Interesting, Master. What do we do if he wants benefits?" Yu Mo looked up and asked Xueli, "Just give him a little bit of benefit." Yu Mo lowered his head and nodded, turning to Yang Kai and saying, "Since Master says so, as long as you can help us win, we'll give you 5% of the profits." Yang Kai hesitated for a moment before nodding lightly. "Good." Turning to Xueli, he asked, "If I can collect enough ransom in this way, will you let me go?" Xueli opened her eyes and stared at Yang Kai coldly before closing them again and saying lightly, "That depends on my mood. If you're honest and obedient, there's still room for discussion, but if you dare to nitpick again, I'll immediately kill you. Yu Mo, test his ability, don't let him be a piece of trash who only knows how to talk." As soon as his voice fell, a terrifying pressure suddenly burst from Yumo's body and enveloped Yang Kai in an attempt to suppress him. Yang Kai's body shrank and he almost fell to his knees. Perceiving the tyrannical power contained in this pressure, his expression also changed greatly. Yuan Qi circulated madly through his meridians to resist the pressure coming from Yumo. Yumo was suddenly surprised. He had long been dissatisfied with Yang Kai and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to teach him a lesson, so he hadn't shown any mercy. He had intended to force this boy to his knees with a single blow to grind down his sharp edges, but he hadn't expected this little brat would actually be able to survive. His expression becoming cold, Yumo once again increased his strength. Yang Kai let out a muffled groan as his body gradually shrank, his knees bending as his face flushed red. Gritting his teeth, he glared towards Yumo as his flesh began to writhe. Catcher. The white jade on the ground suddenly shattered and a shockwave spread outwards from Yang Kai. Cracks of varying lengths appeared on the walls of the entire hall, making it seem as if they would collapse at any moment. Xueli also finally opened her beautiful eyes and stared deeply towards Yang Kai, her pretty face filled with expectation, as if she wanted to see if Yang Kai could withstand Yumo's methods. Under the terrifying pressure of Yumo's aura, Yang Kai's body trembled and his veins bulged, but after 10 breaths of time, he seemed to have adapted to this kind of pressure and his lowered body slowly straightened up. Yumo's expression changed slightly. He was well aware of how much strength he had just released. Under such pressure, let alone a first-order transcendent, even a second-order transcendent cultivator wouldn't be able to resist. Only a third-order transcendent cultivator would barely be able to resist. But this little brat had actually managed to resist, even though it seemed extremely difficult. Coldly snorting, Yumo increased his strength for the third time. Ka. Yang Kai's feet sank into the ground all the way up to his knees. At that moment, Yang Kai moved, his body shooting out like an arrow from a bow, Yuan Qi surging from his hands as he rushed towards Yumo like a bolt of lightning. Before he even arrived, a giant golden sword appeared in his hand and he slashed down towards Yumo. Murderous intent flashed across Yumo's eyes as his Yuan Qi flickered like a snake, exuding an extremely dangerous aura. Enough! Xueli's faint voice resounded throughout the hall. An invisible shockwave passed through and Yang Kai's body suddenly came to a halt, the profound heavenly sword in his hand disappearing into a streak of light and falling heavily to the ground. Yumo also quickly withdrew his strength and frowned as he stared at Yang Kai, who had just gotten up from the ground, coldly asking, "Little brat, did you want to kill me just now?" Seeing this, Kai Yang smiled sinisterly. True young Yuan Qi, what a hateful aura. Xueli frowned, seemingly a little displeased. Although her cultivation wasn't suppressed by Yang Kai's Yuan Qi, just like fire and water, the demonic Qi in her body naturally rejected this kind of true young Yuan Qi. Your strength isn't bad, this queen has underestimated you, Xueli nodded slightly. Xueli nodded lightly. Being able to resist Yumo's power for so long, even daring to counterattack at the last moment, seemingly determined to kill him, this human brat's combat strength and willpower far exceeded his current cultivation. Xueli was a Saint Realm master, so she still had some insight. Master, we can make good use of this. Yumo swept his eyes over Yang Kai indifferently, his expression becoming somewhat restless. Good, it's time for those bastards to bleed out, Xueli sneered coldly. Xueli smiled coldly, arrange a battle for him tomorrow. I want him to win it with great difficulty. Subordinate understands. Yumo grinned wickedly, staring at Yang Kai like a wolf staring at a lamb. I have one more request. Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders and before Xueli could become angry added, one last request. Speak. Xueli shouted unhappily. Give me an artifact that can change my appearance. I don't want my appearance to be seen by too many people, otherwise, there will be many people from the demon race hunting me down in the future, Yang Kai said. Xueli was startled but quickly reacted, smiling lightly, you're thinking quite far ahead. As long as Xueli operated properly, Yang Kai could bring her a lot of wealth. Those people from the demon race who had lost so much wouldn't dare to be angry with Xueli, so naturally they would focus all their resentment on Yang Kai. When that time came, even if he obtained freedom from Xueli, he wouldn't be able to leave the demon land. Yang Kai had such an artifact given to him by Du Wan. However, he didn't dare to use it. After all, he had used this artifact to change his appearance to participate in the 1,000-year demon flower's medicinal liquid. Once he was recognized, it would cause even more trouble, so he could only ask Xueli for help. I don't have such an artifact on hand, it's too precious, Xueli shook her head. But I can provide you with a mask, just a little bit of concealment. Good. Yang Kai nodded. Take him away. Rest well tonight, don't die tomorrow. Xueli chuckled. Yu Mo brought Yang Kai back to his previous room, but before leaving, he directly injected a few strands of Yuan Qi into Yang Kai. In an instant, Yang Kai felt the flow of Yuan Qi in his body become much slower, and even his reaction speed became somewhat sluggish. Do you know why I'm doing this? Yu Mo asked. Yang Kai gently nodded, not resisting. From what Xueli had just said, it was obvious she wanted him to put on a show tomorrow in order to fool those from the demon race and interfere with their judgment. This way, when he fought in the future, they would underestimate his combat strength and not be too optimistic about him, placing their bets on the wrong person. If it weren't for Yu Mo's methods, Yang Kai would likely have been exposed. Those who had placed their bets on the demon race weren't blind, all of them had sharp eyes. Chapter 781. The Death Arena was Sand City's greatest feature. Many great figures of the demon land would bring their own cultivators or cultivators they had captured, arranging them into the Death Arena to engage in life or death battles with others, all for the sake of profit. There were no restrictions, as long as one was a member of the demon race, they were eligible to enter and participate. For the cruel demon race masters, this was undoubtedly very attractive. They could enjoy the blood-soaked battles in the Death Arena, and while doing so, they could also gamble their wealth. As a result, the business of the Death Arena had always been quite booming. For this reason, Sand City would gather a large amount of wealth and materials every year. Among the 4 demon general, in terms of wealth, Xueli was undoubtedly the wealthiest. This was an undisputed fact. Yu Mo briefly explained the situation of the Death Arena to Yang Kai before leaving. After a silent night, Yang Kai decided to conserve his strength. At noon the next day, Yu Mo came again and led Yang Kai out. Leaving the 1,000-meter-tall palace, the two of them flew towards a certain location in Sand City. A moment later, a huge circular arena appeared before Yang Kai's eyes. This arena covered a large area and was surrounded by a variety of mysterious barriers and barriers. At this moment, the high platforms were packed with people. Countless members of the demon race were sitting on them, watching the battle between the two cultivators. The strength of the two cultivators wasn't very high, but their battle was quite fierce. Both of them were covered in blood and had broken limbs. Glaring at each other with hateful eyes, they repeatedly used their artifacts and martial skills, dyeing the battlefield red with blood. As the battle reached its climax, it attracted a burst of cheers from the high platforms. Yang Kai casually glanced over a few times, his expression indifferent. Yu Mo glanced over at him and sneered, "You'll be fighting here soon. Your opponent's cultivation is similar to yours, but unlike you, he can use his full strength while you can only use half. Be careful, although I don't care if you die or not, Master still hopes you can bring her some wealth." I got it. Yang Kai nodded. When the two of them arrived, a cold glare fell upon them from somewhere on the high platform. Yang Kai turned around and saw Xueli sitting there with Enling by her side. Their eyes met, and Enling couldn't help but cover her mouth. She seemed to be calling out to Yang Kai, but Shirley immediately glared at her. Enling didn't dare to say anything. Yang Kai also shook his head at her, indicating that she shouldn't be too agitated. Flying over the Death Arena, Yu Mo led Yang Kai into an underground tunnel. After walking for a long time, they finally saw some light. In front of the tunnel was the inside of the deathmatch arena. Xueli's subordinates were already waiting here, so when they saw Yu Mo arrive, they all respectfully greeted him. "Master Yu Mo, will this human brat be the one to fight this time?" a yellow-skinned man asked. All the information has been submitted and the odds have been set," Yu Mo nodded lightly. The yellow-skinned man grinned meaningfully at Yang Kai and snorted, "Little brat, you need to keep your eyes open, your opponent won't be easy to deal with." He's already fought 3 times and won all 3 times. Among the cultivators in the same realm, no one can last more than an incense stick worth of time against him. Don't die too miserably. Let's wait until he can last more than an incense stick worth of time, Yang Kai said indifferently, not showing any signs of panic. Oh. The yellow-skinned man was suddenly taken aback. Where did this human brat come from? Acting so arrogant, this master wants to see how you'll kill him in an incense stick worth of time. Yu Mo also glanced over at Yang Kai and coldly snorted, obviously thinking that Yang Kai was just boasting. Although he had tested Yang Kai's depths and knew that his strength wasn't ordinary, right now he could only display half of his strength. Just being able to survive was already good enough, so spouting such boastful words was a bit too much for his own good. Yang Kai no longer said anything and just waited quietly. Inside the deathmatch arena, the battle between the 2 cultivators had already come to a conclusion. One was dismembered while the other was crippled. Immediately, someone went to clean up the battlefield. Although the one who was crippled survived, he was also struggling at death's door. When the person who went to clean up the battlefield saw this scene, he asked the spectators on the high platform how to deal with the situation, and after receiving an answer, turned around and directly killed the victor. Blood dyed the ground red, but from the stands there was a burst of cheers. After waiting for a while, Yu Mo nodded to Yang Kai and said, "It's your turn, remember what Master said yesterday." Yang Kai's expression remained indifferent as he put on the mask that Yu Mo had prepared for him and stepped forward. From the opposite corridor, another person slowly walked out. This person was tall and burly and his upper body was bare, his muscles bulging, each one filled with explosive power. In terms of height alone, he was more than twice the size of Yang Kai. As he approached, a towering murderous aura rushed towards Yang Kai, as fierce as a storm, seemingly wanting to tear him apart. However, Yang Kai remained motionless, like a 10,000-year-old reef. When this murderous aura reached him, he took the initiative to part to the left and right. In the stands, many people showed interested expressions, thinking that this life-or-death battle would be very exciting. And Ling who was standing next to Xue Li, clenched her fists and watched nervously. A moment later, the two stood about 10 meters apart and stared at each other. The burly man opposite them should be a human, but for some reason he had been captured and brought to the demon land. According to what Yu Mo had said before, most of the cultivator who entered the death arena were like Yang Kai, captured and forced to fight to the death in order to preserve their lives. There were also some who took the initiative to seek refuge under the master of the demon race in order to obtain benefits and status. There were also some who were personally trained by these masters. But no matter what the reason was, the ultimate goal of entering the death arena was to kill the enemy. Little brat, hiding your head but showing your tail, are you afraid to show your true face? Heh, kneel down and kowtow to this grandfather 3 times and this grandfather will spare your life, how about it? The burly man suddenly shouted, his voice like a clap of thunder, resounding in Yang Kai's ears. This angry shout not only had the intention of deterring the enemy, but also secretly mixed in a trace of divine sense attack. If one was careless, they would lose the will to fight in an instant. At that time, they would be chased by this strong man without any strength to fight back. However, such tricks obviously didn't work on Yang Kai, so after hearing this, he didn't say anything and simply stared at his opponent indifferently, slowly moving his body and adjusting his yuan qi to check his condition. Thanks to Yu Mo, Yang Kai's current yuan qi circulation speed had been greatly reduced and his reaction time had also become much slower. If he didn't lift the seal on his body, he wouldn't be able to display his peak strength. However, this should be enough to deal with this burly man. Little brat, are you deaf? Not receiving a response, the burly man roared again. As soon as his voice fell, he saw Yang Kai's figure flicker and a murderous intent suddenly appear from the side. The burly man's brow flashed a cold light as his lips slowly curled upwards, showing no intention of dodging. Hong. With a muffled bang, Yang Kai's palm struck his opponent's waist but found that his opponent didn't move at all. His opponent's body was as hard as a sheet of iron and the force of the rebound caused his arm to go numb. His opponent's strength also seemed to be quite good. Yang Kai immediately understood. Being able to win 3 consecutive battles in the death arena, this burly man's combat experience and ability were obviously superior to ordinary people, otherwise, he would have died long ago. Seeing his attack fail, without waiting for Yang Kai to withdraw, the burly man grinned, silently and mysteriously lifting his palm and condensing all of his yuan qi into it before slashing downwards. His true essence surged and transformed into the shape of a giant hammer in the air. Before this attack even arrived, the ground around the death arena stage had already caved in, showing just how terrifying this blow was. Yang Kai's expression flickered as his reaction was somewhat clumsy and he didn't have time to withdraw his hand. In the next moment, the palm directly chopped down on Yang Kai's arm. With a crisp sound, Yang Kai's arm broke and drooped down softly. Only then did he reluctantly retreat and open up a distance between him and the burly man. In the stands, there was a burst of boos. The spectators of the demon race had originally seen Yang Kai wearing a mask and appearing calm, so they thought he had some special ability, but they didn't expect that after just one exchange of blows, his arm would be broken, which really disappointed them. Ah! And Linga cried out, her beautiful eyes filled with worry. Shirley narrowed her eyes and stared at Yang Kai below, pursing her lips into a smile. In the death arena, Yang Kai, whose arm had been broken, had just stabilized himself when the burly man rushed in front of him like a bolt of lightning. His 2 thick arms suddenly flashed with black arcs of electricity, making them look ferocious and terrifying. The burly man's body exuded a bloody and brutal aura, and traces of cold light that made people's hearts tremble suddenly appeared, pouring into his hand in an aggressive manner. Immediately, 2 black lightning-like balls of energy appeared in his palms, the size of wash basins and filled with murderous intent. With a wave of his hands, the burly man directly wrapped Yang Kai in them. Lightning surged. He wanted to use this attack to kill Yang Kai. Yang Kai had no strength to resist, and under the attack of the black lightning, he could only move left and right, but he couldn't avoid it at all. Countless palm prints appeared all over his body, causing blood to spurt out, making him look extremely miserable. The boos from the stands grew even louder. What they wanted to enjoy was a blood-boiling battle, not a one-sided slaughter like this. Yang Kai's performance was truly despicable. Those demon race people who had placed their bets on Yang Kai even began cursing and swearing at him, their words extremely unpleasant to the ears. Even Xueli frowned slightly, a cold expression appearing on her face. She wondered if Yang Kai's performance before was an accident. In fact, his true strength wasn't that great, otherwise how could he be so weak when facing a cultivator of the same realm? He couldn't have survived such an attack. Another piece of trash. Shirley coldly snorted in her heart, gradually losing interest in Yang Kai. Chapter 782. Blood dyed the earth red as Yang Kai cut a sorry figure. On the other hand, his opponent was becoming fiercer and fiercer as he fought, seizing every opportunity he could. The brawny man fought to his heart's content and sent Yang Kai flying into the air with a single punch. When Yang Kai fell back down, the brawny man punched Yang Kai's back again, sending him directly into the ground. Dust filled the air, making it impossible for anyone to see what was happening on the battlefield. Because of the barrier covering the death arena, even the Saint Realm Masters who released their divine senses were unable to obtain much information. All they could vaguely sense was that this battle had come to an end. How boring. Many people secretly thought to themselves. But before they could finish their thoughts though, a fierce murderous aura suddenly filled the air, stirring up a strong wind and scattering all the dust. After everyone saw the situation in front of them, they couldn't help exclaiming. Yang Kai, who should have been lying on the ground, unable to get up or even killed, at this moment was actually using his unscathed hand to press his opponent to the ground. The hand that covered the brawny man's cheek wasn't too wide, but it was like the sky itself was falling down, so no matter how the brawny man struggled, he was unable to stand up. At that moment, no one had been able to see what was happening inside the dust cloud, but when the dust settled, such a scene appeared, it was truly surprising. Everyone had seen a desperate counterattack, a battle that turned defeat into victory, but none of them had ever been as confused as today. At this moment, the mask on Yang Kai's face seemed to become extremely cold. Wind and thunder force surged, pouring from Yang Kai's palm into the brawny man's body, forming an intertwined killing field inside his body. Peng. The brawny man exploded into a bloody mist, not even his bones remaining. Up in the stands, Xueli's beautiful eyes lit up as she stared at Yang Kai in surprise, seemingly not having expected him to display such a bizarre performance, her thin red lips curling into a smile. His true strength. How is it? Xueli suddenly asked Linga softly. I won't tell you. Linga shook her head. Why didn't you tell me? Shirley didn't get angry this time. Instead, she revealed a thoughtful expression and pursed her lips into a smile. Then I'll figure it out myself. Looking down at the death arena below, Yang Kai was slowly making his way towards the corridor with one arm hanging by his side. Xueli suddenly felt that this human boy should have some extraordinary skill. The spectator stands were silent for a long time. Suddenly, there was a burst of noise. Most people seemed to be unable to accept such a result and were discussing spiritedly. When Yang Kai returned to the corridor, Yumo's eyes flashed a cold light as he stared at him. The yellow-faced man's mouth was wide open as he stood there in a daze. His eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets. It didn't even take half an hour for this arrogant human brat to kill his opponent. Does this match look difficult enough? Yang Kai took off the mask on his face and asked Yumo. Yumo's mouth twitched as he nodded lightly. Not only had it been difficult, but it had also been quite lifelike, without the slightest flaw. Even Yumo thought Yang Kai was dead. But at the last moment, Yang Kai had been shocked. This little brat's courage was quite big. Wasn't he afraid he wouldn't be able to stand up after taking such a violent attack? Only then did Kai Yang shake his arm, and a crisp sound came from his broken arm. In an instant. Arrange a second-order transcendent for me in the next round, that way you'll be able to obtain more benefits while I'll also be able to obtain more benefits. The sooner I collect the ransom, the sooner I can leave. Yang Kai grinned. Yumo couldn't help feeling a bit absent-minded. Following him back to the palace, Yang Kai began to recuperate. It seemed that because of this victory, Yang Kai's treatment had improved greatly. Among the meals he received were many supplements. Even Linga was allowed by Xueli to visit Yang Kai once. The two talked for a long time before Linga left. After 3 days, Yang Kai was arranged to fight a second time. Perhaps it was because of his bizarre performance last time, but when he appeared wearing a mask again, he attracted a lot of attention. This time, his opponent was really a second-order transcendent. After a bitter battle, Yang Kai narrowly escaped death and won again, causing those from the demon race to exclaim in disbelief. Fighting above one's realm was a feat that very few people could accomplish, especially after reaching the transcendent realm. Even if the difference in strength was only a minor realm, the difference in true combat effectiveness was as wide as heaven and earth. A second-order transcendent cultivator could easily kill a first-order transcendent cultivator, but this common sense had been broken by Yang Kai. This time, Yang Kai was still carrying the seal placed on him by Yumo, so he wasn't able to use his full strength. Unlike last time, he was really going all out in this battle. In this life-or-death struggle, Yang Kai felt that he had comprehended a lot of things and was quite happy about it. He felt that this kind of life-or-death battle was of great benefit to his growth. In his heart, Yang Kai didn't reject this kind of fighting style and instead looked forward to it. This was an opportunity to hone himself. The growth of a cultivator wasn't just about cultivating behind closed doors. Life-or-death battles often provided greater benefits than this kind of secluded cultivation. Of course, the premise was that one could survive the battle. After understanding this, Yang Kai constantly urged Yumo to arrange stronger opponents for him. Yumo was dumbfounded, and the look in his eyes when he looked at Yang Kai became somewhat strange, as if he was looking at a psychopath. None of the foreign race cultivators he had captured before had ever acted like Yang Kai and asked to fight in the death arena. Xueli, on the other hand, was very open-minded, and as soon as Yang Kai made a request, she immediately began arranging for him. The opponents arranged for him grew stronger and stronger, and Yang Kai found it more and more difficult to cope with them, but every time he was able to create an amazing miracle at the most impossible moment. Over the course of 3 months, Yang Kai fought a total of 14 battles, all of which were second-order transcendents. These people were from the human race, the monster race, and even the demon race. For different reasons, they were all sent to the death arena and all of them were defeated by Yang Kai. Yang Kai's harvest was huge. Not only did he gain insights from these life or death battles, but he also gained insights into the heavenly way and martial Tao after swallowing the spiritual energy of these people's souls. His own growth was extremely fast. During these 3 months, Yang Kai also inadvertently made a name for himself. Inside Sand City, everyone knew Xue Li had a strange masked man who was only a first-order transcendent but had killed more than a dozen second-order transcendent cultivators. As a result, in the death arena, the odds for Yang Kai's victory changed again and again, but this did not stop people from placing bets on him. Xue Li, as a banker, naturally wouldn't suffer a loss in this kind of gambling, but Yang Kai's terrifying growth rate made her feel a little uncomfortable. She understood this better than anyone else. She also understood how Yang Kai was able to achieve such rapid growth in all those battles. On this day, inside Xue Li's palace, a messenger came to visit and after talking with Xue Li for a long time, left satisfied. An hour later, Yang Kai was summoned. Inside a private room, Xue Li was lying on her bed, her beautiful buttocks perked up, her soft breasts squeezed under her body, her hands resting on her chin, her posture extremely provocative. And Ling was kneeling beside her, massaging her shoulders. The room was filled with a mature fragrance, which made people feel relaxed and happy when they smelled it. Yumo brought Yang Kai into the room and bowed his head. He didn't even dare to look directly at Xue Li. Yang Kai, on the other hand, stood beside the bed. Sweeping his eyes over Xue Li's beautiful body, Yang Kai's eyes lit up. This demon general's heart was like a snake. However, it was undeniable that Xue Li's body was very graceful and mature. Unlike Linger's naivety, Xue Li was a mature woman. Such a woman was a fatal temptation to any man. However, a character as strong as Xue Li probably wouldn't be tempted by any man. The only thing that could tempt her was strength that surpassed all others. After waiting for a long time, Xue Li suddenly said, "Go Cheung sent someone over just now." "Chem?" Yang Kai frowned. "Is it related to me?" "Yes, Go Cheung seems determined to kill you." "Then how did you respond?" Yang Kai stared at her coldly and taunted. "Did you sell me out?" This king had such an idea but refuse. "Why is that?" "Because he is Go Cheung." Xue Li sneered. "I won't act according to his wishes. However, the messenger he sent made a proposal which I agreed to." Yang Kai didn't ask any more questions and simply waited for her to tell him the details. "Tomorrow at the death arena, you will fight the person sent by Go Cheung to the death. If you win, you will be able to collect your ransom. If you lose, you will have nothing left, including your life," Xue Li said lightly. Yang Kai raised his brow and chuckled. "The person sent by Go Cheung isn't weak, is he?" Xue Li glanced over at him and said casually, "Third-order transcendent." Hearing this, Yu Mo, who had been standing nearby, also paled slightly. "It seems you want to join forces to kill me," Yang Kai grinned, not showing the slightest trace of panic. "He does want you to die, but this king wants to see what your limits are." Xue Li's pretty face became cold. "Don't think this king can't see through it. You've been concealing your strength from beginning to end. You seem to have many methods you haven't used yet." Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders and didn't comment. "That's why I'm looking forward to your performance tomorrow. Don't let me down." "Then you can wait and see." Xue Li sneered softly, turning to Yu Mo and saying, "Lift the seal on his body. I want to see if he can survive under Go Cheung's hand." Yu Mo nodded lightly, releasing a wisp of Yuan Qi and lifting the seal that had been suppressing Yang Kai's strength. "There's one thing I want to understand. If I win tomorrow, will I have collected enough ransom? What about Linger?" Xue Li looked at him for a moment before smiling. "Of course it's only yours. However, I can give you a chance. As long as you win tomorrow, I'll let you two go." "You said so yourself." Yang Kai laughed. "Demon General's words should be trusted, right? I hope you won't go back on your word." Xue Li closed her beautiful eyes and didn't respond. Chapter 783. The dark red earth, which had swallowed the blood of countless lives, was littered with battle scars. This was the death arena. Those from the demon race who had heard some insider news had long been waiting in the stands. After watching a few not-so-fierce battles, a masked human slowly walked out from an underground tunnel. In an instant, cheers rang out. Over the past few months, Yang Kai had brought these demon race disciples a series of thrilling and suspenseful battles that had long since spread throughout Sand City. Today, however, the battle between Yang Kai and another master would be the finale. Because there were rumors that his opponent this time would be different from before, a third-order transcendent master. Since the opening of the Death Arena, there had never been a battle with such a huge disparity in strength, a gap of 2 full minor realms. In the eyes of those who didn't know the truth, such a battle was already predestined. However, for those who had watched Yang Kai's dozen or so battles, they hoped that Yang Kai would be able to create another miracle. This had nothing to do with the hatred between races, it was simply because Yang Kai's performance had caused their eyes to light up and their spirits to soar. Is that the human boy who won more than a dozen consecutive battles in the Death Arena, the one who barely escaped death each time? In the stands, a Saint Realm Master narrowed his hawk-like eyes and asked the person next to him. Yes, Master Feng Biao, his performance is indeed very good. Even many of our demon race's elite disciples can't match up to even 1% of his strength. The person next to him immediately replied. After today, he'll be nothing but a corpse. Feng Biao coldly snorted, his expression clearly not wanting Yang Kai to continue living. What Master says is correct. After all, his opponent is different from the ones before. The man nodded. The man nodded repeatedly, but after a moment of hesitation, he said in a low voice, "But sir, he was raised by Lady Xueli. If we kill him, Lady Xueli will blame us." "She won't." Feng Biao slowly shook his head. This time, it was Master Go Cheung's orders. "I also went to Xueli's palace yesterday. I've discussed it with her, and she personally agreed to it. How could she blame me?" Hearing this, a look of surprise appeared on that person's face. He didn't know why Master Go Cheung was so interested in this human. Go Cheung's son had been saved by Yang Kai, and only a few people knew about this. Feng Biao was sent here to handle this matter. It was also extremely secretive, so this person couldn't understand the whole story. Although Xueli didn't get along well with Go Cheung, she wouldn't be so bored as to spread such news to suppress Go Cheung. She would only confront Go Cheung with her own strength. "Master, that Yu Mo is coming," the man suddenly whispered. Feng Biao narrowed his eyes and looked to the side. Just in time to see Yu Mo fly over from a short distance away with a smile on his face. After landing, Yu Mo sat down beside Yang Kai without any trace of politeness. Both of them were first-order saints, but they belonged to 2 demon generals who were not pleasing to the eye, so it was only natural that their relationship wasn't very good. As soon as they came down, their eyes met, and sparks flew. "Yu Mo, long time no see." Feng Biao greeted with a cold expression. Yu Mo smiled back. "Feng Biao, it's been so long. I still get angry when I see you. I can't help wanting to kill you." "Same here." Feng Biao gently nodded. His yuan qi slowly flowed as he stared towards Yu Mo like a poisonous snake. Yu Mo curled his lips and said, "But I didn't come here to fight with you. I just wanted to ask you some questions." "What questions?" "Looking at you, it seems you're 100 times more confident in today's battle." "Ph, you already know the answer. My Sand City's Death Arena has gambling rules. Since you're so confident, why don't you place a bet? When the battle over there is over, you can make some money." "Do I need you to remind me?" Feng Biao said with a disgruntled expression. "I've already bet 200,000 crystal stones." Yu Mo snorted and said in surprise, "Worthy of Feng Biao, you're quite generous. It seems you want to make a fortune in my Sand City. You can't afford it." Feng Biao smiled contemptuously. "If you can't afford it, I can withdraw as long as you, Yu Mo, apologize to me in front of all these people. Don't joke, since Sand City has opened up this business, naturally no matter how much it costs, I'm just saying, this is a rare opportunity, why don't we play big?" Saying so, he stared towards Feng Biao with a threatening look. Feng Biao's brow furrowed as he quickly said, "Play big? Ian, you can bet everything you have. I remember you have a lot of artifacts, right?" Feng Biao frowned as he stared at Yu Mo suspiciously, coldly saying, Why do you look so confident in that human? It's hard to say, maybe he'll win, maybe he'll lose, 50-50. Since it's a bet, let's see if you have the courage. Feng Biao stared at him deeply. Although he knew that this guy, who was completely incompatible with him, was provoking him, he still couldn't suppress his anger and nodded. Good, I'll bet all my artifact. Saying so, he stretched out his hand and summoned out a glowing artifact armor, a long halberd that exuded a shocking energy fluctuation, and a black ruler, which he handed over to Yu Mo. These three things were all saint-grade artifacts, each of them priceless. Together, the value of these three artifacts was immeasurable. They were Feng Biao's most trusted and most frequently used artifacts. If he lost this bet, Feng Biao's combat effectiveness would plummet. After handing over these three saint-grade artifacts, Feng Biao even took out the universe bag from his waist and handed it to Yu Mo, sneering, "If you want to play, then let's play to the end, what do you say?" Yu Mo's brow twitched, but he still smiled and didn't say anything, turning around and leaving. Feng Biao didn't stop him, nor did he ask him to sign any kind of agreement. Although they didn't like each other, a verbal agreement was still mutually respected. A moment later, Yu Mo returned to Xueli's side. "Have you arranged everything?" Xueli looked down at Yang Kai standing in the middle of the death arena and asked softly. Feng Biao has bet all his belongings." Yu Mo nodded lightly, frowning slightly. "Master, do you have so much confidence in that little brat?" "To be honest, although his previous performance was quite surprising, this time I really don't think he'll win. He's very likely to die here. It doesn't matter if he dies, but Feng Biao has bet so much, if he dies, it will affect my Sand City." "I don't know." Xueli's beautiful eyes flashed with confusion as she shook her head gently. Yu Mo was surprised. As one of the 4 demon generals and one of the world's top masters, Xueli naturally had a good eye for people, but this time, it seemed she couldn't see through the situation. "I'm also gambling. Although on the surface, that little brat is really going to die, but," saying so, Xueli glanced over at Enlinger who had been standing guard beside her and smiled. "This little girl hasn't shown much worry from beginning to end." Yu Mo couldn't help glancing over at Enlinger and found that this was indeed the case. Even if she knew that Yang Kai would meet a strong enemy today, she still maintained a calm expression. Xueli had obviously obtained some information from Enlinger. "I asked her several times what that little brat's true strength was, but she refused to answer. The more she acted like this, the more curious I became." Xueli reached out and touched Enlinger's face, causing the latter to pale in fright. "Tell me, has he ever fought with such an opponent before?" Xueli suddenly asked. Enlinger's beautiful eyes lost focus for a moment, but soon a look of struggle flashed across her face as she recalled the scene of her being chased by Saintess Nan, the scene of her fighting against the many masters of the Sun Clan in the mysterious small world, one by one, flashed through her mind. Enlinger's expression was pained as she shook her head repeatedly. Xueli sighed helplessly. Her willpower is also quite strange. It seems she cultivates some kind of powerful secret art. However, judging from her performance, that little brat should have fought with such a master before and come out unscathed. Otherwise, how could this little girl be so relaxed? Xueli nodded lightly. "Just wait and see. If he doesn't die this time, in the near future, he will definitely become the most dazzling figure in the entire world. In time, he may even reach the level of the demon commander and dominate the world." Yu Mo trembled slightly. "Master's evaluation of him is so high. He has such potential," Xueli said decisively, a cold murderous intent flashing across her beautiful eyes. "Unfortunately, such a person isn't a member of my clan. If he was, perhaps we would have been able to cultivate him properly." Yu Mo had followed Xueli for many years and naturally knew what she was thinking at the moment, so he couldn't help sighing. With such excellent aptitude, in the face of adversity, the more setbacks he faced, the stronger he became. If such a good seedling wasn't killed early, he would definitely have a huge impact on the entire demon race in the future. Today, whether this little brat won or lost, his fate was already sealed, because his master had already decided to kill him. Looking down at Yang Kai, who was standing straight down, quietly waiting for his opponent to appear, Yu Mo couldn't help feeling a bit regretful. After a long time, a person walked out of the corridor opposite Yang Kai. This person seemed to be strolling leisurely, but in fact, his speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he suddenly appeared not far in front of Yang Kai. Wearing a set of black robes, this man had a majestic physique and an indifferent expression. His long black hair fell to his shoulders and his eyes were like cold stars, giving off an intimidating aura. A towering evil chi radiated from this man's body, one that seemed to stretch far into the distance. His yuan chi was also quite pure, clearly superior to that of an ordinary third-order transcendent cultivator. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as his heart clenched. With just a single glance, Yang Kai knew that this person wasn't a soft persimmon he could pinch at will. This time, he really would have to go all out against him. Although Yang Kai had his soul devouring insects and wasn't afraid of any opponent below the Saint Realm, this time was different. In front of so many members of the demon race, he couldn't use his soul devouring insects, so he could only use his own means to defeat this enemy head-on. Moreover, Yang Kai also wanted to test the results of his recent cultivation. Chapter 784. While Yang Kai was observing his opponent was also sizing him up, his eyes wandering about as he tried to guess his intentions. Although he couldn't see Yang Kai's face, he could feel a thick murderous aura radiating from him. This aura was extremely rich and obvious, and when facing an opponent whose cultivation was far higher than his, the pair of eyes under the mask actually burned with a burning desire to fight. He's not a mediocre cultivator. This man only needed to observe for a moment before he immediately understood, a trace of caution flashing across the depths of his eyes. The difference in cultivation was so great, yet the other party was so eager to fight. There were only two explanations, either arrogance or self-confidence. Someone who could win more than a dozen consecutive battles in the death arena could not be the first. If that were the case, this man would have died long ago. Did this human brat really think he could compete with him with just a first-order origin realm cultivation? This man suddenly felt intrigued. In the stands, when Yang Kai's opponent walked out, the sound of discussion rang out from all directions. Many of the demon race cultivators pointed towards Yang Kai's opponent, a look of surprise appearing on their faces, seemingly having recognized his identity. Isn't that Di Xiao, one of Master Go Cheung's subordinates? That's him. I went to Qingliao City before and saw him there. He is indeed Di Xiao. Why would he appear in the death arena? It is said that he is the strongest master under the Saint Realm among Master Go Cheung's subordinates, only one step away from breaking through to the Saint Realm. This human brat facing Di Xiao, I'm afraid he's in for a bad time. Di Xiao's means are not something an ordinary transcendent can compare to. After serving under Master Go Cheung for so many years, he has made many outstanding achievements and is said to be able to even exchange blows with Saint Realm masters. What a pity. After today, I'm afraid we won't be able to see this masked brat's figure on the death arena stage again. A trivial human brat, if he dies then he dies, let's see how Di Xiao kills him. This brat has been so rampant for so long, does he really think there is no one in our demon race who can match him? Good. Although I prefer him. But he is a human after all. Yang Kai raised an eyebrow when he heard the whispers coming from all directions. It was as if he hadn't expected his opponent to be so famous in the demon race. Since Go Cheung had sent him to deal with him, it was clear that this matter was of great importance to him. Di Xiao suddenly grinned. Friend, although we aren't from the same clan, I heard that you've defeated more than a dozen second-order transcendent masters, each time barely escaping death. I admire people like you very much. If possible, I would like to befriend you, but I was ordered by Master Go Cheung to take your life this time, so don't blame me later. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. He remained indifferent and silent. Then, let's begin. Di Xiao cupped his fists slightly before disappearing like a ghost. Yang Kai's expression changed. He hurriedly retreated from his original position. In the blink of an eye, he was more than 100 feet away. He clenched his fists, and yuan qi gushed out. He ruthlessly smashed downwards in a violent and direct manner. The destructive power reached deep into the ground. Boom! The entire death arena stage shook violently. The aftermath of the impact spread to the edge of the arena and was blocked by countless barriers and barriers. A giant crater more than 100 meters deep appeared in an instant. From this giant crater, a cold light flashed, seemingly tearing through space, crossing the barrier of distance and instantly arriving at Yang Kai's chest. *PU. Blood splashed as Yang Kai let out a muffled groan and staggered back several steps, staring forward with a dignified expression. On his chest, there was a long incised wound from which blood was gushing out, dyeing his clothes red. Exclamations came from all directions as many people's eyes flashed with shock at Di Xiao's tyrannical strength. Di Xiao had used some kind of movement skill and disappeared from everyone's sight, burrowing into the ground and striking out like a bolt of lightning. Yang Kai didn't even have time to react before he was struck. Yang Kai had fought more than a dozen times since he had appeared in the death arena stage, and although each time he had narrowly escaped death, he had never been in such a dangerous situation as today. With just a single blow, he had been wounded by his opponent. And it seemed that his injuries were not light either, his face alternating between blue and white as he gasped for breath for a while before gradually stabilizing. Di Xiao still stood not far away with a smile on his face as he stared at Yang Kai, seemingly not moving from his spot, but a look of dissatisfaction could be seen on his face. He had thought that even if his blow couldn't kill Yang Kai, it would at least be able to incapacitate him, but he had not expected that his opponent would be able to withstand it. This little brat, there's something strange about him. His physique seems to be incredibly strong, somehow managing to neutralize the power of his attack. Amazing. Di Xiao praised sincerely. I didn't expect there to be an existence like you among the human race. You're not bad yourself. Again, Di Xiao shouted, not giving Yang Kai the slightest time to catch his breath as a series of tornadoes suddenly appeared around him. Each of these tornadoes was extremely thick and shot straight up into the sky. The moment they appeared, the death arena stage was enveloped in a thick fog. The rubble on the ground was sucked into these tornadoes, causing them to become even more terrifying and condensed. An incomparable murderous aura spread out from Di Xiao's body, causing the tornadoes to suddenly turn pitch black. Above the death arena stage, dark clouds had appeared at some unknown time, obscuring the sky and making the atmosphere particularly dignified. A series of wind blades shot out from these tornadoes, each of them incredibly sharp and unstoppable, colliding with each other and creating a series of sparks. *Shou. In an instant, these wind blades completely surrounded Yang Kai, leaving him with no way to escape. Yang Kai shouted as the ground beneath his feet suddenly sank. Condensing a drop of yang liquid from his fingertips, he waved his hand and condensed a shield above his head. The wind blades surged forward and enveloped Yang Kai, but the shield condensed by true Yang Yuan Qi constantly changed shape, like a canoe in the middle of a stormy sea, in danger of being destroyed at any moment, but it persisted, protecting Yang Kai from these wind blades. The demon race spectators in the stands were all stunned and couldn't help calling out in alarm. Yang Kai was only a first-order transcendent, but he was actually able to withstand the attacks of Di Xiao, a third-order transcendent, without showing the slightest sign of defeat, a fact that was difficult to accept. Di Xiao was not an ordinary demon race cultivator. He was one of Go Qiong's subordinates and could be said to be the strongest master below the Saint Realm in the entire demon race. The number of masters who had died at his hands was innumerable, and on top of that, Go Qiong had specially trained him as his future right-hand man. His status and strength were not something an ordinary transcendent could compare to. Even in the stands, the demon race cultivators could feel the terrifying power of Di Xiao's attacks. Such a powerful attack had not been able to break through the defenses of Yang Kai's Yuan Qi shield, which was obviously a bit surprising. Master, he really does have potential to be unearthed. Yu Mo's eyes lit up as he muttered, in the previous battles, he didn't use his full strength. Xueli's beautiful eyes flashed as she coldly said, Yuan Qi alone was able to resist Di Xiao's attack. It's obvious that the density and purity of his Yuan Qi is no less than Di Xiao's. This young man is not bad at all. The cultivator around Xueli was also paying close attention, a look of shock appearing on their faces. Only Enling'er's face was filled with worry. Although Xueli was praising Yang Kai, Enling'er could hear the dread in her voice. The more dazzling Yang Kai's performance this time, the more determined Xueli was to kill him. But if Yang Kai fell into Di Xiao's hands, he would still die. Regardless of the situation, Yang Kai's situation was quite dangerous. And Ling Er's heart was in a mess and she didn't know what to do. Interesting. Di Xiao looked at Yang Kai, who was resisting his attacks not far away, and was instead quite happy. He originally felt that Master Go Cheong sending him to kill such a human brat was a waste of his talents, but after arriving in Sand City and hearing about Yang Kai's various achievements, he felt that such a person was worth his time. In fact, he didn't put Yang Kai in his eyes at all. But now, when he found that this human brat had the strength to fight back, Di Xiao immediately became excited. He was the kind of person who enjoyed fighting and longed for a baptism of blood. He enjoyed watching his opponents stubbornly resist but struggle helplessly. At this moment, Di Xiao truly regarded Yang Kai as an opponent, and his mentality subtly changed. The power gushing out from his body instantly increased. The tornadoes that hovered around him howled like pitch-black flood dragons. They merged with each other and converged into an even larger storm that swept through the entire arena. The surrounding barriers were impacted by this energy, and ripples visible to the naked eye began to appear. However, these barriers had all been personally arranged by Xue Li, so although Di Xiao was skilled, he was unable to destroy them, so the demon race spectators in the stands didn't worry much and instead continued to stare down below in high spirits, chatting amongst themselves. Yang Kai was completely enveloped by the wind blades and tornadoes. The wind blades swept out like a swarm of locusts, covering the sky and earth in an innumerable number, their sharp auras threatening to tear him apart. The aura of death mixed in with these wind blades was terrifying. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Yang Kai didn't even try to dodge. Catcher. The shield condensed from Yang liquid didn't last long under the onslaught of this berserk attack and directly shattered. In the next moment, Yang Kai's body was enveloped by countless wind blades. His clothes were torn apart and blood splattered everywhere. In just a breath's time, Yang Kai's body was covered with countless wounds. Even the clothes he was wearing had been cut into shreds. He was in a sorry state. Di Xiao smiled as he stared at Yang Kai as if he was looking at a dead man, without the slightest emotion. In the next moment, Di Xiao's smile stiffened on his face. Kai Yang, who should have been shot to death, actually slowly straightened his upper body. Lowering his head slightly, he stared at him with a sinister look in his eyes. His throat emitted a strange and creepy laugh, making everyone's hair stand on end. Chapter 785. With a sneer on his face, Yang Kai stretched out his hand and tore off his tattered robes, revealing his muscular body. His muscles swelled and trembled as his strength intertwined with each other, giving off a powerful and refined aura. Standing in the center of the raging wind blades, no matter how they swept towards him, Yang Kai was like an immovable mountain, forcibly resisting the onslaught of these wind blades without showing the slightest sign of weakness. "Friend, your strength isn't enough." An uproar broke out among the crowd. The demon race spectators in the stands were all amazed by this scene, their eyes filled with amazement. They had thought that with Di Xiao personally taking action this time, Yang Kai would be defeated or even killed in a short period of time, but the current situation had greatly surprised them. Surrounded by the wind blades, Kai Yang's body was covered in small wounds, but other than that, he didn't suffer much damage. The strength of his physique seemed to have reached a certain limit, allowing him to withstand such an attack head-on. Everyone clicked their tongues in wonder. Yang Kai's provocation caused Di Xiao's expression to become somewhat ugly as he sneered, "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, I'd like to see how long you can last." Saying so, Di Xiao suddenly waved his hands, and as he did so, the tornadoes that had swept across the entire Death Arena stage seemed to come to life and converged towards Yang Kai, not leaving a single blind spot. As these tornadoes approached Yang Kai, they also began to merge with each other, growing stronger until they had transformed into a giant black tornado filled with a murderous aura. Like a ferocious dragon, this tornado shook its head and swung its tail as it rushed towards Yang Kai. "Yuan Qi transformation. I have one too." Yang Kai grinned, and with a loud dragon roar, a huge dragon head suddenly appeared behind him. This golden color was dazzling to the eyes, and its momentum was extremely violent. The dragon's head swayed ferociously. Soon, an even longer and stronger golden Jiao dragon appeared and collided with the pitch-black tornado. They tore at each other above the entire death arena stage. In an instant, it was shrouded in gold and black, intertwining with each other. Yang Kai's flood dragon came from the golden dragon tattoo on his back. Originally, this flood dragon could only be used while in his Become the Demon race, but after the soul exchange between him and Su Yang in Ice Sect last time, Yang Kai was now able to release it at will. On top of that, this golden dragon also contained Yang Kai's divine sense. Compared to Di Xiao's simple martial skill, it was far more flexible and lethal. The two dragons clashed, and the scene was intense. Almost everyone's attention was attracted by this magnificent scene. They stared at the sky above the deathmatch arena without blinking, wanting to know which of these two flood dragons was the better one. Boom boom boom, amidst the deafening noise. The beams of light intertwined like a terrifying volcanic eruption. The pitch-black tornado seemed to be subdued by the golden dragon. It retreated again and again, and soon, its color dimmed. The true Yang Yuan Qi was always the nemesis of the demonic Qi. The aura emitted by the golden dragon made every demon race member feel uncomfortable. Suddenly, a loud roar rang out. On the death arena stage, the two figures clashed and separated. Blood dyed the earth red. While everyone's attention was attracted by the two flood dragons in the sky, Yang Kai and Di Xiao had unknowingly collided. The two fought with all their strength for a while. Terrifying bursts of energy filled every corner of the death arena stage. After the two figures separated, Yang Kai bent over and clutched his abdomen, blood gushing out from between his fingers. The pain was unbearable. In just a single collision, he felt as if his body had been pierced by thousands of attacks, his bare upper body riddled with wounds that were deep to the bone. Di Xiao was worthy of being one of Go Qiong's generals. With his peak third-order transcendent cultivation, his combat awareness and rich combat experience allowed him to seize the initiative. Although Yang Kai was suffering, Di Xiao was also suffering. Pieces of flesh and blood inexplicably disappeared from his arms and neck. Fresh blood dripped down, his aura was violent and chaotic, and his face was distorted. Staring at each other, panting heavily, the two men's eyes turned red at the same time. At this moment, a bloodthirsty aura surged out and engulfed both men's minds, leaving only one thought in each of their minds: to kill the other. Looking at the blood flowing from Yang Kai's abdomen, Xue Li, who had been sitting in the stands, suddenly stood up, her beautiful eyes trembling as she stared towards him, a look of disbelief filling her face, as if she had just discovered something incredible. "Master." Yu Mo saw this scene and quickly called out. Xue Li's brow furrowed as she took a deep breath, staring around in shock for a long time before slowly sitting back down. Yu Mo stared at her suspiciously, not understanding why Xue Li suddenly had such a reaction. Although Yang Kai's performance was beyond everyone's expectations, it shouldn't have caused her to lose her composure like this, right? What did Master discover? Yu Mo thought for a while before slowly shaking his head, his attention once again drawn to the battle below. Murderous intent surged out like a tide, and even though Yu Mo was standing in the stands, he could clearly feel it. Even as strong as he was, Yu Mo couldn't help closing his pores, lest his will be affected by this murderous aura. Di Xiao was truly amazing, but Yang Kai was also quite strong. Until this battle was fought to the end, no one could predict the final outcome. A rich demonic qi rolling out from Di Xiao's body, causing the space around him to become pitch black. This demonic qi was filled with various kinds of evil energy that quietly spread out. Yang Kai on the other hand was like a burning sun, his true Yang Yuan qi protecting him from the other party's demonic qi. The two opposing energies collided in an invisible manner, creating a series of crackling sounds. Both of them had pushed their strength to the limit. Now that they were evenly matched, neither of them dared to lower their guard, and neither of them would show mercy. A long roar rang out, deafening to the ears. A shocking murderous aura surged out as Yang Kai, who only had murderous intent in his heart, roared towards the heavens, forgetting everything else, only the will to destroy his opponent. His true Yang Yuan qi madly expanded, immediately suppressing his opponent's demonic qi. Di Xiao's complexion changed, not daring to show the slightest neglect, his body flickering as he appeared in front of Yang Kai, his palms filled with the aura of death as they pressed down towards Yang Kai. The ground below was instantly reduced to dust, but Yang Kai managed to dodge in the nick of time, also releasing a yuan qi from his palms and sending out a burst of pure yuan qi towards Di Xiao. Without any fancy moves, the two men on the death arena stage both brought out their full strength, entangling each other like fire and water. Di Xiao's cultivation was 2 minor realms higher than Yang Kai's, but his demonic qi was suppressed by Yang Kai's true Yang Yuan qi, so even if he used his full strength, he was only able to display 80% of his full strength, causing him to be extremely annoyed. The battle between the two men became more and more intense, the shockwaves bursting out from the two men's bodies and auras completely obscuring them. The people in the stands could only see blurry figures moving about, unable to see what the situation was like. A battle to the death. Blood continued to spatter from the arena, mixed with the sound of explosions and muffled groans. Whether it was Yang Kai or Di Xiao, both of them had gone completely mad. This kind of fierce battle caused everyone watching to tremble in fear, secretly gripping their hearts. A variety of exquisite demon race martial skills were released from Di Xiao's hands, each one of them causing Yang Kai to suffer greatly. Yang Kai's methods were not weak either, his yang liquid constantly changing, making it impossible for Di Xiao to guard against it. The two figures were entangled together, bombarding each other indiscriminately. Their attacks were merciless, and during this period of time, light flickered. It was as if the mountains were collapsing and the earth was splitting apart. It was as if meteorites were falling. Before they knew it, almost half of the death arena stage had been destroyed. There had never been a battle with such destructive power. Everyone watching the demon race felt their blood boil, wishing they could rush down from the stands and witness such a battle without regrets. The more Di Xiao fought, the more shocked he became. He had never imagined that this little human brat, whose cultivation was far lower than his own, would actually be so powerful. He had never seen any transcendent who could compete with him. His killing moves bombarded Yang Kai, but they were often only able to injure him, not deal a fatal blow. His body was as hard as a rock, not something a human could possess. What shocked Di Xiao even more was Yang Kai's resilience and endurance. After fighting for so long, every move and strike the two of them had required their full strength. Di Xiao was already feeling overwhelmed. His yuan qi consumed a great deal of energy, so whether it was in terms of momentum or strength, Di Xiao was clearly weaker than when he was at his peak. But this was not the case for this human. He had maintained his peak condition from beginning to end, never once weakening, instead only growing stronger with each setback. It was as if he had an inexhaustible supply of yuan qi in his body. The wounds inflicted on his body stimulated him to become more and more brutal. What's more, during this battle, Di Xiao also discovered something that terrified him. That was that the wounds on Yang Kai's body were actually healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The numerous wounds that had been inflicted by the wind blades had all disappeared. Being able to heal his wounds in the middle of a battle, what did this mean? Di Xiao did not see Yang Kai take any kind of pill, nor did he have the time to do so. For the first time, Di Xiao discovered that there was such a strange person in this world, not only able to compete with a son of heaven like him, but even surpassing him. This discovery dealt a heavy blow to Di Xiao, causing his mood to become complicated. He was an elite among the elites of the demon race, and in just 80 years, he had reached the third-order transcendent realm and was expected to reach the peak of the saint realm before he was 100 years old. A 100-year-old saint realm master was an extremely rare existence in the entire Tongxian realm. Some of the elites cultivated by great forces would reach the transcendent realm at a very young age, but once they reached this realm, almost all of them would experience slow progress, rarely being able to break through to the saint realm before they were 100 years old. But Di Xiao had such potential. This was also why he had placed high hopes on Master Go Qiong, providing him with an extremely good cultivation environment and a lot of material support. For a long time, Di Xiao had been proud of this, believing that one day he would become the strongest master below the demon commander, perhaps even stand shoulder to shoulder with the demon commander. But now, he had been struck by a huge blow. If what Go Che said was true, Then this human boy he was fighting was only 25 or 26 years old. Had all these extra decades of cultivation gone to waste? Chapter 786. In a battle between masters, it was not only a competition of one's own strength, but also of one's state of mind and will. Di Xiao's mind went blank for a moment as the stalemate between them suddenly became clear and his momentum was completely suppressed by Yang Kai. The spectators from the demon race in the stands also finally realized that the situation had taken a turn for the worse. Originally, the golden and black energies had been evenly matched inside the Death Arena stage, neither of them inferior to the other, but suddenly, Di Xiao's black demonic qi had weakened significantly while the hateful golden hue had suddenly become brighter. Seeing this scene, no one could sit still. Impossible. This little brat can even defeat Di Xiao? How is that possible? Di Xiao is a third-order transcendent, 2 minor realms higher than him. If Di Xiao is defeated, our demon race will lose all face. Damn, is this guy even human? A first-order transcendent can defeat a third-order transcendent. What if he really becomes a saint? Even Feng Biao, who had been sent by Go Qiong, had a gloomy expression on his face. His eagle claw-like hand pinched the back of his chair, crushing it into dust, but he didn't even realize it. Xueli also leaned forward and used her powerful divine sense to penetrate the Death Arena stage, paying close attention to any changes in the battle. Of all the spectators present, no one could see the situation more clearly than her because the barriers around the Death Arena stage had been personally arranged by her. Her original intention was to allow the cultivator who entered the stage to fight a life or death battle space without worrying about disturbing the gamblers in the stands, but after all, this was the work of a top-level master, so even if others tried to peer through the barriers, it would be impossible for them to see anything clearly. Xueli, on the other hand, was different. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared intently at Yang Kai and Di Xiao, as if they were floating in the air. This battle had really exceeded her expectations. If she hadn't inferred that Yang Kai was likely to win based on Enlinger's mood and clues, Xueli would have never believed it. This battle was far more exciting than she had expected. Moreover, as she watched, the murderous intent towards Yang Kai in Xueli's eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by a thick sense of suspicion and confusion. Amidst the densely packed sounds of explosions, the golden and black energies that had been entangled together suddenly separated. The two silhouettes retreated separately, and with great difficulty, they stood still with a distance of several hundred feet between them. Dust flew everywhere as the battlefield became chaotic. Everyone in the stands held their breaths and remained silent, their eyes closely watching the battle below. Everyone wanted to know who had won. Gradually, the dust settled and the two figures below were imprinted in everyone's eyes. A series of gasps rang out. No one dared to believe what they were seeing. Di Xiao's entire body was bathed in blood and there wasn't a single part of his body that was unscathed. There were clear palm prints all over his body. Fist marks, finger marks. This elite warrior under Go Qiong's command seemed to be exhausted, gasping for breath. The sound of his breath sounding like a broken bellows entered everyone's ears, indicating that he didn't have much strength left. Yang Kai was also covered in blood and under the illumination of the sun, there was even a faint golden glow around him, making him look extremely strange. His sturdy body was riddled with scars. He wasn't much better off than Di Xiao. The only difference between the two was the light in their eyes. Di Xiao's originally brilliant eyes were now dull and dull. Yang Kai, on the other hand, was brimming with energy. Di Xiao. As long as one wasn't blind, they would be able to see it. I underestimated you. You really are strong. Di Xiao coughed a few times and spat out some blood and bits of his internal organs. Anyone who underestimates me will pay the price. Yang Kai grinned and took a deep breath before lifting his foot and slowly walking forward, his yuan qi surging madly as his eyes filled with murderous intent. He wanted to kill this man in front of him and put an end to this death match. Seeing his intentions, Feng Biao, who had been sitting in the stands with a gloomy expression, finally couldn't sit still and shouted angrily, "Boy, you dare!" Saying so, his figure flashed like a bolt of lightning and disappeared from the spot, transforming into a streak of light that shot towards the Death Arena stage. Although Di Xiao had failed Master Go Cheung's expectations by losing to a human brat, he was still someone Go Cheung valued highly, so Yang Kai didn't have the right to kill him. Feng Biao couldn't just sit back and watch, he wanted to take this opportunity to eliminate Yang Kai as well. Yu Mo. On the other side, Xue Li suddenly shouted. Yu Mo nodded lightly and also disappeared from the spot. A moment later, he suddenly appeared in front of Feng Biao, blocking his path. Get out of my way! Feng Biao shouted angrily, not caring that this was Xue Li's territory, directly sending out a palm strike towards Yu Mo. The latter coldly snorted and quickly responded. The two First Order Saint Realm Masters from the demon race instantly engaged in a fierce battle. Above the Death Arena stage, flashes of light flickered as a terrifying burst of power erupted. All the spectators from the demon race were dumbfounded. They had not expected that today, not only would they be able to enjoy a wonderful battle between two transcendents, they would even be able to enjoy a battle between two Saint Realm Masters, immediately becoming excited as they stared intently. Yu Mo, what do you mean by this? Feng Biao saw that he couldn't get rid of Yu Mo and angrily asked, do you know who Di Xiao is? If he dies here, can you bear the anger of Master Go Cheung? Idiot! Whether Go Cheung is angry or not, it's none of my business. Yu Mo sneered, this is Sand City, my master's territory, have you made a mistake? You're forcing Master Go Cheung and Master Xue Li to fight. That's not what I meant, it's just that the Death Arena has its own rules. Only one person can leave alive, this rule cannot be broken. You! Feng Biao's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. While he was fighting with Yu Mo, he saw Yang Kai arrive in front of Di Xiao, the Yuan Qi condensed at his fingertips, his movements extremely calm. Di Xiao, who had exhausted all of his strength, was barely able to stand, let alone resist, so at this moment he was looking up towards the sky for help. Feng Biao quickly shouted, little brat, if you dare attack, you're dead. Just as he finished speaking, the Yuan Qi condensed at Yang Kai's fingertips transformed into a sharp sword and pierced Di Xiao's chest. Di Xiao's body swayed as blood gushed out of his chest like a fountain, his eyes bulging as he fell backwards. Asterisk peng. Asterisk a cloud of dust was kicked up. Damn, this little brat, he really killed Di Xiao. This is interesting, I think even Master Xue Li won't be able to save him. Master Xue Li didn't try to save him, he's dead. Up in the air, seeing that Di Xiao was really dead, Feng Biao and Yu Mo also stopped fighting, the former's face gloomy as if a storm was about to hit, his pair of red eyes staring towards Yang Kai, as if he wanted to tear off the mask on his face and see what he looked like at this moment. Yu Mo's eyes twitched, secretly shocked by Yang Kai's boldness, silently returning to Xue Li's side. Beside Di Xiao's body, Yang Kai stood quietly, his back straight, motionless. Under the influence of the demon eye of annihilation, an undetectable amount of spiritual energy poured into Yang Kai's mind and was purified and absorbed by him. Gradually, the atmosphere and aura in the air became strange as Yang Kai's aura fluctuated. Feng Biao, who was staring at Yang Kai with hatred, suddenly narrowed his eyes, a trace of shock and dread flashing across his pupils. Sir! Yu Mo also exclaimed, his eyes glued to Yang Kai as he stared at him. Xue Li's expression changed again as she felt the energy fluctuations around Yang Kai's body become chaotic. Staring at the flickering light around his body, Xue Li suddenly froze. Master, could it be he? Yu Mo muttered in surprise. An epiphany, this little brat. Xue Li's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. It's probably because of the life or death battles he has experienced these past few months that he has comprehended many things, and today's battle has completely sublimated them. It's incredible. Yu Mo exclaimed, did he choose to break through here? Isn't that a bit too arrogant? Di Xiao had just been killed by him, so Feng Biao couldn't wait to kill him immediately. The people from the demon race in the stands were also filled with righteous indignation, constantly clamoring for Yang Kai to pay with his life. This was not a good time to break through. If things went wrong, it would cause a great riot and the crowd would directly swallow him up. Master, are we just going to sit back and watch? Yu Mo's eyes narrowed as he asked. As long as Xue Li didn't say anything, Yang Kai would undoubtedly die today. No one from the demon race was willing to see such a human grow stronger. Although Yang Kai had brought a lot of fun and excitement to these people from Sand City before, the situation was different now. Almost everyone was aware of his terrifying potential. Of course we'll do something. Pass down my order. Anyone who dares enter the death arena before he breaks through will be killed without mercy. Xue Li's beautiful face was filled with inexplicable excitement. Ah! Yu Mo was startled, completely confused. Before, Xue Li clearly wanted to kill Yang Kai, so after today's battle, whether Yang Kai won or lost, he would undoubtedly die. But now, Xue Li's attitude made Yu Mo somewhat confused. If she really wanted to kill this human brat, she wouldn't even need to intervene. Feng Biao and the other members of the demon race would be able to kill him while he was breaking through. Before, she had only stopped Feng Biao because she wanted to suppress Go Qiong's arrogance and uphold the rules of the death arena. Could it be that this little brat's performance is so outstanding that the master is reluctant to kill him? Yu Mo secretly guessed, but was still puzzled. However, he didn't ask any more questions and quickly sent out his divine sense. In the next moment, many masters from the demon race rushed into the death arena and surrounded it. Seeing this scene, everyone understood that Xue Li was protecting Yang Kai, so no one dared to act rashly, only cursing and swearing. Standing in the middle of the death arena, Yang Kai didn't seem to be aware of all this. In fact, he was also paying close attention. The actions of Xue Li's subordinates made him feel a little strange, but since this woman didn't want to kill him for the time being, Yang Kai could rest assured and boldly break through without any worries. Considering all this, Yang Kai's mind remained calm, without sadness or joy, without any desires or thoughts, allowing his aura to surge. Chapter 787. Outside the death arena, countless people from the demon race were shouting and cursing, but none of them dared to make any aggressive moves. Inside the death arena, the world energy fluctuations gradually became more and more unpredictable. After an unknown amount of time, a heaven-destroying, earth-shattering energy fluctuation suddenly erupted with Yang Kai as its center. The energy of heaven and earth around him was like a tsunami, crazily swirling like a whirlpool, attacking the restrictions and barriers of the death arena. Such terrifying energy! Yu Mo's eyes bulged as a look of horror appeared on his face, unable to stop himself from exclaiming, his eyes flashing brilliantly. Xue Li was also slightly dazed, shaking her head slightly as she muttered, "He really does have the qualifications to act so arrogantly. This kind of energy aura is comparable to a third-order transcendent. No wonder Di Xiao died at his hands." So when the people from the demon race saw this scene, their expressions became ugly. If the one standing inside the death arena at this moment was Di Xiao, they would likely be cheering for him, but since it was a human, they found it somewhat difficult to accept. As the surging world energy raged around the death arena, Yang Kai closed his eyes tightly, a look of comfort and satisfaction appearing on his face as the faint golden glow that enveloped his body became more and more dazzling. After a long time, the violent world energy suddenly rushed back and was absorbed by Yang Kai's body in just a dozen breaths. The chaotic death arena suddenly became much clearer. Looking at Yang Kai at this moment, the expressions of the people from the demon race became somewhat numb, all of them groaning in their hearts but unable to make any sound. Yang Kai, who had been seriously injured in his battle with Di Xiao, now had his wounds healed at a strange rate, the small wounds completely disappearing and the big ones becoming negligible. Xue Li's beautiful eyes narrowed as she licked her ruby-red lips, as if she was in heat, her eyes staring towards Yang Kai excitedly. Inside the death arena, Yang Kai gently clenched his fists and felt the power flowing through his body. He was extremely satisfied. This time, he had broken through. When the conditions were right, there was no obstruction. These past few months of hard fighting and the various insights he had gained were like nutrients, nourishing his body and soul, allowing him to reach the edge of a breakthrough. After his battle with Di Xiao, Yang Kai immediately glimpsed the mysteries of the second-order transcendent realm. The richness and thickness of his Yuan Qi had risen to a new level, and even his spiritual energy had become much more condensed and powerful than before. Yang Kai was extremely satisfied. The only thing that made him feel somewhat helpless was that he had broken through in front of so many people from the demon race in this death arena. Especially in front of Xue Li. Yang Kai had long been aware of Xue Li's intention to kill him and was extremely vigilant against this powerful woman, but the gap in their strength was simply too great. Xue Li, Xue. Xue Yang Kai, Xue Yang, he, Xue. Considering all this, Yang Kai turned his head towards Xue Li and shouted, Master Xue Li, do you mean what you said before? Xue Li's beautiful eyes narrowed as she chuckled. What did I say? You said that as long as I can win this battle, you will let me and my female companion go. Xue Li, does Master want to renege on your promise? Yang Kai continued to shout. His voice reached the ears of all the people from the demon race. Xue Li snorted. From a distance, she glared at Yang Kai. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of hatred. Although the two of them had made such an agreement before, Xue Li had never intended to abide by it. Now that Yang Kai had said it in front of so many people, Xue Li had no choice but to reconsider. If she did not abide by the demon general's words, it would greatly affect Xue Li's reputation. Smelly brat. Xue Li ground her teeth angrily, knowing that Yang Kai was forcing her, but she couldn't refuse in front of so many people. Master, he's courting death. Yu Mo laughed gloatingly. Let him go, we won't need to do anything to stop him from dying. Saying so, Yu Mo glanced over at Feng Biao, whose face was filled with murderous intent. Yu Mo knew that Feng Biao was the one who wanted to kill Yang Kai the most. The key is that I don't want him to die now. Xue Li snorted. Yu Mo was stunned and didn't dare say anything more. Xue Li, Master won't go back on his word, right? Inside the death arena, Yang Kai shouted for the third time, his face filled with an inexplicable smile. Xue Li exhaled lightly, causing her ample bosom to rise and fall exaggeratedly as she slowly stood up and declared, Of course not. You and your female companion are now free to leave whenever you want, no one will stop you. Yang Kai stared at her deeply and cupped his fists. Many thanks, Master Xue Li. Saying so, he flew up from the death arena and rushed towards Xue Li, arriving in front of her in a flash, grabbing An Ling and shouting, Let's go. Little brat, I believe we'll meet again soon. Xue Li suddenly whispered softly, her words reaching Yang Kai's ears, causing his heart to tremble. Glancing over at Xue Li, he suddenly found that this woman was staring at him with a deep and meaningful gaze. Cheap slut. Yang Kai cursed in his heart, knowing that Xue Li didn't intend to let him leave so easily. In front of all these demon race members in the death arena, she had agreed without hesitation because she didn't want to damage her reputation, but she was definitely plotting something behind his back. Yang Kai was afraid that as soon as they left, there would be people chasing after them. Yang Kai immediately understood and said, I don't think we'll meet again. Just wait and see. Xue Li coldly snorted. Yang Kai took An Ling and shot up into the sky, disappearing like a bolt of lightning. In the stands, the demon race people who were filled with righteous indignation and wanted nothing more than to kill Yang Kai saw him leave so blatantly and also left the stands, forming groups of 3 or 4 as they quietly followed behind Yang Kai. Xue Li and Yu Mo saw all this but pretended not to notice, not making the slightest attempt to stop them. Feng Biao, who had been sent by Go Qiong, stood in place, his expression gloomy for a moment before glancing over at Xue Li and grinning meaningfully and disappearing. Master, they seem to have all chased after him. I'm afraid this time that little brat's fate is sealed. Yu Mo whispered. Not to mention Feng Biao, a first-order saint, who was tailing them, Yang Kai wouldn't be able to cope at all. Just his clansmen alone were enough to give Yang Kai a headache. Although Yang Kai was strong and had only just broken through a minor realm, after fighting Di Xiao for such a long time, it was likely his strength had been reduced by at least 70 to 80%. Being caught by those people, only death awaited him. His dead meat. Xue Li grit her teeth, seemingly a little annoyed, that little brat brought this upon himself. If he hadn't left, I wouldn't have killed him, but he chose to die. Then, you go and bring him back for me. Xue Li ordered lightly, don't let anyone take his life. Yes. Yu Mo nodded and quickly set off. Daring to say we won't meet again, I'd like to see what kind of expression you'll have when you see this king. Xue Li smiled softly, got up, and walked towards her palace, preparing to wait for the moment Yang Kai was captured. Outside Sand City, Yang Kai and Ling were running at top speed, their speed reaching an unimaginable level, leaving a long afterimage behind them. "Are you okay?" Ling asked worriedly. During the battle with Di Xiao, Ling had also been frightened and knew how serious Yang Kai's injuries were. At this time, what he should be doing was calmly recuperating instead of frantically using his Yuan Qi. "I'm fine," Yang Kai shook his head. Yang Kai was well aware of his own body's condition. The powerful restorative power of the demon god's blood had even surprised Yang Kai. If it had been before, after suffering such serious injuries, Yang Kai would have needed to recuperate for a while, but now, the demon god's blood in his body had an incredible restorative ability, allowing him to recover in a short time. Although he hadn't fully healed yet, he was able to move without any hindrance. On top of that, Yang Kai didn't need to worry about his Yuan Qi. There were still hundreds of drops of Yang liquid in the Dantian and 60 to 70 fruits from the divine tree in the Black Book space, all of which could be used to supplement his Yuan Qi. "There seems to be someone chasing us from behind," Ling suddenly shouted, her beautiful face going pale. "It's not just someone, it's a lot of people." Yang Kai's expression didn't change, he had long since noticed this. Under the investigation of his powerful divine sense, he was even able to clearly see the number and cultivations of the pursuers. There were quite a few transcendents and even a few saints, but there were only 2 or 3 of them. Behind these people was that Feng Biao. Feng Biao's aura was locked onto him, and he could not get rid of it. Behind Feng Biao was Yu Mo. Sure enough, Xue Li had sent him to chase after him. Yang Kai secretly cursed, vowing to himself that one day he would teach this poisonous woman a good lesson. More than half of Sand City's forces had been drawn out by Yang Kai. Yang Kai was quite annoyed in his heart, but he didn't show any of it on his face, continuing to fly forward at a leisurely pace. The masters from the demon race who had chased after Yang Kai out of Sand City had all summoned their artifacts and used their full strength to chase after him, gradually closing the distance between them and Yang Kai. After an hour or so, Yang Kai had only flown a few hundred kilometers before he was about to be caught. Ling anxiously sent a series of seals into Yang Kai's body to help his Yuan Qi circulate and increase his speed. "They won't be able to catch up." Yang Kai comforted her. He had been maintaining this speed all this time, simply waiting for an opportunity. In his perception, most of these pursuers were nothing to fear. Once his soul-devouring insects appeared, they would all die. The only ones he needed to be wary of were the few Saint Realm masters mixed in with Feng Biao and Yu Mo. These people were the ones Yang Kai was worried about. Noticing that Feng Biao and Yu Mo were maintaining a very subtle distance from him, neither too far nor too close, just the limit of what their divine senses could cover, Yang Kai immediately felt that his opportunity had come. Chapter 788. Whether it was Feng Biao or Yu Mo, both of them were obviously proud of their status and cultivation and were unwilling to associate with other members of the demon race. On top of that, they were also quite confident in their own strength, so they maintained a subtle distance from Yang Kai. This gave Yang Kai an opportunity. With a loud bang, the power of wind and thunder surged, and behind Yang Kai, his wind and thunder wings unfurled in a dazzling display. With a flap of his wings, his already fast speed suddenly increased. Ling, who was being pulled along by him, couldn't help narrowing her eyes as she circulated her Yuan Qi to resist the fierce wind, causing their clothes to flutter and their hair to fly wildly. In a flash, they had escaped from the range of Feng Biao and Yu Mo's divine sense. Ling couldn't help calling out. Although this wasn't the first time she had seen Yang Kai use his wind and thunder wings, she had seen Yang Kai use them when they were escaping from Saintess Nan, but no matter how many times she saw them, Ling was still fascinated by the beauty of those wings. Such a pair of wings shouldn't belong to a man, but to a woman. Even looking at Yang Kai now, she couldn't help feeling that he was extraordinarily handsome. Ling pursed her red lips as she stared at Yang Kai's profile, her eyes slightly blurred as she couldn't help leaning her tender body against Yang Kai and hugging his arm. "Hey, can't you at least look at the situation before you act like a love-struck fool?" Yang Kai immediately noticed her abnormality and couldn't help glaring at her. From his elbow, he felt an amazing elasticity and softness, causing Yang Kai's momentum to almost collapse. And Linger's face suddenly blushed as she stubbornly said, "How could that be? Don't talk nonsense, I just feel that the outside world is so wonderful. It's completely different from what I imagined in the Holy Land." Since meeting Yang Kai, and Linger's days had been filled with excitement. This kind of excitement made her panic, but also made her quite excited. It seemed that as long as Yang Kai was by her side, no matter how dangerous the situation was, she would always be able to avert it. Ordinary people don't have such a wonderful life. Yang Kai spat disdainfully. His wings flapped continuously, and his body moved like a rainbow, faster and faster. The faces of the demon race members who had been tailing him changed. Originally, they could still see Yang Kai, but in that instant, they lost sight of Yang Kai. Among the group, the 2 or 3 Saint Realm Masters also wore shocked looks. Not daring to be negligent, he hurriedly sped up and chased after him. In the next moment, 2 figures flew past these people one after the other. It was Feng Biao and Yu Mo who had noticed something was wrong and had increased their speed. The expressions of these two were particularly dignified, especially Yu Mo. It wasn't until now that Yang Kai realized that even in his life or death battle with Di Xiao, Yang Kai had been concealing his means. With this jaw-dropping speed alone, Yang Kai should have been able to toy with Di Xiao in the palm of his hand, but he had waited until this moment to use this move, so it was obvious he had been prepared for this moment. As a result, Yang Kai instantly escaped from the detection range of his divine sense. This smelly brat. Yu Mo cursed as he chased after Yang Kai. Another 2 hours passed. The demon race members who had been tailing Yang Kai finally stopped their pursuit. They had no idea where Yang Kai and the other Saint Realm Masters had run off to, so without a target, they had no way of pursuing them. One by one, they all hung their heads and sighed as they returned to Sand City. 2,000 kilometers away from Sand City, Yang Kai's expression became dignified. Yang Kai found that he had still underestimated the means of these Saint Realm Masters. Although he had displayed his wind and thunder wings and managed to escape from their divine senses for a short period of time, these Saint Realm Masters had used some kind of unknown method to accurately locate his position and firmly follow him. The demon land was very large, so Yang Kai wasn't sure if he was in the right direction, so he could only try to find some desolate routes to escape from the demon land. His powerful spiritual energy played a crucial role at this time. Yang Kai's physical cultivation was only at the second-order transcendent realm, but his spiritual energy was no less powerful than a Saint Realm Master. Even compared to Feng Biao and Yu Mo, his spiritual energy was no worse, perhaps even stronger. With this kind of help, Yang Kai could avoid crowded areas, so as to avoid being discovered by the other members of the demon race and causing unnecessary trouble. After running for such a long time, Yang Kai was also somewhat exhausted. Whether it was his physical strength or his spiritual energy, both had been greatly consumed, while Enlinger's face was also dispirited, obviously exhausted. Running and stopping, Yang Kai was unable to shake off Feng Biao and Yu Mo. The other Saint Realm Masters had given up chasing Yang Kai after a few days, but these two were like rabid dogs, constantly biting onto Yang Kai's tail, causing him great annoyance. These two people who were originally enemies with each other seemed to have gradually gathered together because of this pursuit. Half a month passed by, a month passed by. By now, Yang Kai had led Enlinger through the demon land for more than 100,000 kilometers, and the demonic qi in the air was gradually becoming thinner. This caused Yang Kai's spirits to soar, and he secretly felt that his direction was not wrong. As long as he continued to flee in this direction, he would definitely be able to leave the demon land. As long as he left the demon land, Feng Biao and Yu Mo would have no choice but to give up. Seeing hope, Yang Kai's spirits suddenly soared. On this day, Yang Kai's expression suddenly changed as he came to a stop and stared towards a dense forest in front of him. In front of him, he noticed the auras of many masters lurking, seemingly waiting for him to walk right into their trap. At the same time he came to a stop, a pair of cold eyes in the dense forest suddenly spotted Yang Kai. What a vigilant little brat! This master from the demon race secretly praised, a look of surprise flashing across his face. The auras of the people he had brought with him had been perfectly concealed, blending in with the surrounding environment, but this boy had still been discovered. What are you doing sneaking around? Come out! Yang Kai observed for a moment before taking a deep breath and suddenly shouting. The man grinned and no longer hid himself, leaping up into the sky and walking towards Yang Kai. Looking at this master from the demon race approaching him, Yang Kai's face filled with suspicion. He had never seen this person before, but looking at their posture, it was clear they were indeed waiting for him and Ling Er. This person's cultivation was not weak, probably at the Saint Realm. Even if he wasn't as strong as Feng Biao and Yu Mo, the difference wasn't great. Behind this man, a number of seemingly powerful masters appeared one after another, all of them curiously staring at Yang Kai. Hearing a sound behind him, Yang Kai's face sank, realizing that Feng Biao and Yu Mo had also caught up. Sure enough, a moment later, these two rabid dogs appeared one after another, blocking Yang Kai's path. Yu Mo, is this the human boy who escaped from Sand City? The master from the demon race in front of him stared at Yang Kai and asked. Yu Mo's expression became cold as he nodded lightly. En. Turning to Yang Kai, he shouted, "Smelly brat, you sure run fast. If I hadn't sent a message to City Lord Man, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to stop you." As he spoke, a look of hatred flashed across his face. This time, he had accepted Xueli's order and thought he could easily capture Yang Kai, but after a month of chasing him, he had almost exhausted himself to death. Feeling very depressed, Yu Mo secretly decided that once he caught Yang Kai, he would make him suffer a bit to vent the hatred in his heart. After listening to Yu Mo's words, Yang Kai suddenly understood. When he was being chased, Yu Mo had used some kind of method to send a message to City Lord Man, telling him to set up an ambush here in advance and wait for his arrival. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. After all, this was his opponent's territory. Although he had been able to escape for a while, today he had been blocked, so there was likely no road to heaven or door to earth. While Yu Mo and City Lord Man were talking, Feng Biao, who was standing nearby, wore an indifferent expression, his eyes constantly darting around, seemingly observing the situation around him. His purpose was different from Yu Mo's. He wanted to kill Yang Kai and complete the task given to him by Master Go Cheong, but now that Yu Mo had called for help, he suddenly felt a bit troubled. Feng Biao's restlessness didn't escape Yu Mo's notice, and even City Lord Man wore a pensive look as he chuckled. "Isn't this Feng Biao? Why aren't you staying in Qingliao City and serving your Go Cheong master? What are you doing out here in the middle of nowhere?" Yu Mo shouted, "Feng Biao, today I won't embarrass you, so scram." Feng Biao coldly snorted, glaring towards Yang Kai and then towards Yu Mo before suddenly retreating a short distance and faintly saying, "You can capture him, I won't intervene, but I'll report everything that happened before to Master Go Cheong. I hope you can bear the consequence." Seeing him take such a stance, Yu Mo no longer spoke any more nonsense, glancing towards Yang Kai and sneering, "Little brat, are you going to surrender yourself or do you want me to capture you? I'll tell you in advance, if you want me to take action, you may suffer some injuries. Are you so confident you can catch me?" Yang Kai smiled lightly. Hearing this, City Lord Man's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets as he muttered in amazement, "Yu Mo, what kind of background does this human brat have? His arrogance is greater than the heavens. In front of several Saint Realm masters, he actually dared to speak such big words. Was there something wrong with his head? He has the capital to back up his arrogance. Di Xiao was killed by him in Sand City's death arena, one-on-one," Yu Mo explained softly. "What?" City Lord Man's face paled as he exclaimed, "Are you sure? Di Xiao was killed by him? He seems to only be a second-order transcendent. I saw it with my own eyes, how could I be mistaken? Also, when he killed Di Xiao, he was only a first-order transcendent. After killing Di Xiao, he broke through to his current realm." "Are you for real?" City Lord Man had a look of disbelief on his face as he exclaimed in shock. "Why else do you think Feng Biao chased after him for an entire month?" Yu Mo ground his teeth. "Damn it, I won't mention it, it's too embarrassing." "Ha ha ha ha." City Lord Man burst out laughing, a look of ridicule filling his face. "What, you chased him for an entire month and still couldn't catch him?" As he laughed, his expression suddenly became cold as he muttered, "It seems this little brat really has some skill." Chapter 789. The City Lord of the Demon Race's Man City looked like a burly man, but in fact, he was a shrewd and cunning man. He knew that if Yumo hadn't forced him into a corner, Yumo wouldn't have praised a human cultivator so highly. City Lord Man City immediately realized that this human was indeed different from the others. With just a first-order cultivation, he had killed the third-order Di Xiao. No one in the demon race had ever been able to accomplish such a feat. It had always been Di Xiao who killed those above his realm, but this time he had been killed instead. It was obvious just how powerful this human was. Jiyu Man, this time I'll have to trouble you to take action. I'll stand guard for you. Yumo glanced over at Feng Biao not far away and ordered. He obviously didn't trust Feng Biao and needed to take action to prevent him from acting rashly. No problem, I like to destroy the pride and self-confidence of young people, especially someone like this human. It'll definitely be very enjoyable. Jiyu Man nodded heavily, his face filled with excitement as he waved his hand and shouted to the people he had brought with him, "Go test his depths, don't be careless, I don't want to have to collect your corpses." The masters from the barbarian city grinned as they walked over, sizing up Yang Kai with great interest. Yumo frowned, faintly feeling that something was wrong, but thinking that with so many people dealing with Yang Kai, there shouldn't be any problems, he didn't stop them. "City Lord, is there any reward for capturing this human brat?" The experts from the barbarian city shouted. It seemed that they wanted to obtain some benefits from the ancient barbarian city. "Reward my ass. Father here was sent to the edge of the demon land by Master Xueli to be city lord. This place is even more desolate than Sand City, yet you dare ask me for a reward? If you want to, you should ask Yumo," Jiyu Man cursed. Hearing this, Yang Kai's eyes lit up and his lips curled into a grin. Although Jiyu Man's words were filled with complaints, they also revealed a piece of news that made Yang Kai excited. This place was really the edge of the demon land. This meant that as long as he left this place, he could escape from the demon land. "What are you blabbering about? Don't tell me you didn't get enough benefits," Yumo shouted. "Jiyu Man, you're just like this. If it weren't for this, why would Master Xueli arrange for you to be here? Short-sighted fellows will never improve." Jiyu Man wasn't annoyed, instead he grinned meaningfully. "Did you hear that? Master Yumo said that anyone who catches him will be rewarded. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and do it, idiots." When the masters of Barbarian City heard this, their auras immediately became fierce, and they all glared at Yang Kai with unkind expressions, surrounding him without leaving a trace. Yang Kai was not flustered at all. He just looked at them coldly. Secretly condensing his spiritual energy, he was ready to launch an attack with his soul-devouring insects, killing all these cultivator below the Saint Realm in one fell swoop. Just as both sides were about to draw their swords, Ling Er's delicate body suddenly trembled, and a trace of fear and pain appeared on her pretty face. She couldn't help but pull on Yang Kai's clothes. "What's wrong?" Yang Kai frowned and asked softly. He thought that Ling Er had been hit by some kind of trick. However, Ling Er's beautiful eyes trembled. Stretching out a finger, she pointed to the distance, over there. Following the direction of her finger, everyone stared in that direction. In just a single glance, all of them were stunned. On the other side of the sky, the wind and clouds were converging, and a thick, rolling dark cloud was rapidly approaching. Mixed with this dark cloud was an extremely uncomfortable aura, and there was even a faint divine sense being transmitted over. Everyone paled in fright. "Saintess Nan?" Yang Kai muttered. "It should be." Ling Er gently nodded, her beautiful eyes dark and gloomy, as if she couldn't see the light at all. "Fuck." Yang Kai couldn't help cursing. Being chased by Yumo and Feng Biao, being ambushed and intercepted by Jiyu Man, he didn't care because he hadn't used all of his means yet. He believed that as long as he became the demon race, he would be able to escape with Ling Er. But at this critical moment, this previous generation's saintess who had never killed a single person in her life and slaughtered 1,000,000 corpses after her death had actually chased him here, disrupting Yang Kai's plans and causing him to become anxious. Yang Kai had experienced Saintess Nan's methods before and knew he couldn't resist her. Even if he had broken through to the second-order transcendent realm now, Yang Kai didn't have the slightest confidence in defeating her. The last time he had been able to escape from her hands was entirely because of the void corridor at the bottom of the sea, But now that he was in the middle of nowhere, there was no possibility of escape. Yang Kai's emotions were stirred up while Feng Biao, Yu Mo, and the others also wore dignified expressions. All of them were Saint Realm masters, so they could naturally perceive the tyrannical strength of this person. Even they had to be wary of such an existence. What kind of powerful master would actually come here? The two of them couldn't understand and could only stare towards Yang Kai thoughtfully, wanting to get an answer from him. If you don't want to die, hurry up and leave, my reinforcements are here. Yang Kai stared at them coldly, trying to maintain a calm expression. Yu Mo chuckled. Why do I feel like this person is filled with murderous intent towards you and the woman beside you? Yang Kai curled his lips, knowing that there was no way he could deceive Yu Mo and the others. Little brat, you really know how to stir up trouble, actually provoking such a powerful enemy. It's a miracle you've survived until now. Do you think I want to? Yang Kai said indignantly. If he hadn't learned a few of the 9 heavens divine skills from Enling and been tainted with her aura, Saintess Nan wouldn't have targeted him like this. But Yu Mo, this person's aura is a bit strange. Ji Yu Man frowned as he carefully probed this person's aura. He couldn't help but feel that this person's aura was too heavy, completely devoid of any fluctuations a living person should have, shaking his head and asking, what should we do? Capture this little brat and leave quickly. Yu Mo decisively made up his mind, not daring to delay any longer. No matter how strange this person was, Yu Mo had already felt how tyrannical his opponent was. Even if he and Ji Yu Man joined forces, they might not necessarily be able to win. If they didn't leave now, the night was long and the dreams were many. No need, I'll go with you. Yang Kai said casually, suddenly changing his attitude. Going with Yu Mo and the others might give him a chance to survive, but staying here would only result in death. He didn't have the capital to resist Saintess Nan yet. Little brat, you know your place. Yu Mo nodded lightly, expressing satisfaction, but soon his expression changed again, grinning bitterly. I'm afraid it's too late. This person is too fast. As soon as he finished speaking, a perfectly proportioned hand stretched out from the rolling dark clouds in the distant sky, covering the direction of the crowd from afar. As this jade hand pushed forward, it grew larger and larger until it covered the entire sky, making it impossible for anyone to see the slightest trace of light. Heaven-covering hand. A single hand covering the heavens. The masters from the demon race all cursed loudly while Yang Kai also quickly took Enling and fled. Hong. The earth shook and the forest where Ji Yu Man and the others had been hiding was suddenly smashed deep into the ground. From a bird's-eye view, one could see a terrifying giant hand seal appear in a radius of more than a dozen kilometers. As if some kind of natural disaster had occurred, a strong wind swept out, sending sand and stones flying everywhere. Several unlucky masters from Barbarian City who were unable to escape in time were crushed into meat paste on the spot. The rest of the people who managed to barely avoid this disaster by relying on their profound cultivations. Yu Mo and Ji Yu Man gathered together, their expressions extremely ugly. Although they already knew that this person was extremely strong, it wasn't until the moment he took action that they realized they had still underestimated this person's methods. Second-order saint. At the very least, this person's cultivation was at this level. Standing mid-air, Yu Mo and Ji Yu Man didn't have any fighting intent, only wanting to get as far away from this place as possible, but they didn't dare to make the slightest move because when the giant hand seal was about to descend, a divine sense had already locked onto their bodies. Once they moved, they would be mercilessly slaughtered. Both of them took a deep breath and focused their gazes in a certain direction. In that direction, a graceful woman in a pure white dress was slowly walking over. Her appearance was delicate, her figure was slender, and her temperament was extraordinary. She was a rare beauty in this world. But at this moment, her expression was dull and a thick death chi flowed from her brow, making her complexion appear somewhat dark and gloomy. From her, Yu Mo and Ji Yu Man couldn't feel the slightest trace of vitality. As she walked, streams of refined energy shot out from her slender fingertips, transforming into sharp blades that shot towards the experts of Barbarian City. These masters below the Saint Realm were unable to resist in the face of these attacks, and in just a few breaths of time, they were all killed by her, not leaving a single one alive. Jiu Man's eyes went bloodshot as he roared, "You smelly whore, you dare attack my Jiu Man's people." Yu Mo also wore a gloomy expression as he shouted, "You slut, don't you think it's a bit too much for you to kill without even asking?" Facing the curses and questions of these two, Saintess Nan didn't respond in the slightest, her beautiful eyes not even blinking. Yang Kai was secretly gloating in his heart, but on the surface he didn't show it. Saintess Nan was already a dead person, so no matter what Yu Mo and Jiu Man said, they wouldn't get a response. Yang Kai was naturally happy to watch the show. The only problem now was how to escape from this previous generation's saintess. Even with Yu Mo and Jiu Man's interference, Yang Kai estimated they wouldn't be able to last long. Midair, as Saintess Nan continued to approach, Yu Mo and Jiu Man's hairs all stood on end. Exchanging a glance with each other, they quickly condensed their strength. They knew that today, they had no choice but to fight with this woman. Even Feng Biao, who had been watching the show from the sidelines, couldn't help feeling angry. He had also been locked onto by Saintess Nan's divine sense, so if he wanted to survive, he could only temporarily join forces with Yu Mo and Jiu Man to resist. The three First Order saints immediately gathered together. Even if such a lineup couldn't win against Saintess Nan, escaping was probably not a problem. A moment later, when Saintess Nan was about 300 meters away, rolling demonic chi burst forth from the three Saint Realm Masters of the demon race, all of them displaying their full strength as they attacked Saintess Nan. A giant sword appeared out of thin air and slashed down towards the three saints, carrying with it the power to destroy heaven and earth. Profound heavenly sword. This giant sword contained a thick death domain, causing Yu Mo and the other saints to tremble in fear. Chapter 790. The three demon race Saint Realm Masters didn't know anything about Saintess Nan and immediately began fighting, falling into a bitter struggle. Although there were three of them, Saintess Nan's cultivation was a minor realm higher than any of them, so even though she was fighting one against three, she wasn't at a disadvantage. Seeing this, Yang Kai was overjoyed. Without saying a word, he pulled an Ling and fled. This little brat. Although Yu Mo saw this scene, he couldn't free himself to stop it, so he couldn't help grinding his teeth in anger. Knowing that this mission was impossible to complete, Yu Mo vented all of his anger on Saintess Nan, not showing any mercy as he summoned his saint-grade artifact and released a massive amount of power. After half a stick of incense worth of time, Yang Kai and Enlinger had fled 100 kilometers away. Even from so far away, the shockwaves from the battle between the Saint Realm Masters could still be felt, causing Yang Kai to feel some lingering fear. Yang Kai had always felt that there seemed to be a fundamental difference between the Saint Realm and the Mortal Realm. This wasn't a great realm gap, but rather the true chi flowing through the bodies of every Saint Realm Master he had encountered was somewhat different from that of those in the Mortal Realm. Without reaching this level, Yang Kai didn't know what the mysteries of the Saint Realm were, so he could only wait until later to find someone to ask. Chem. And Ling suddenly let out a soft cry, her brow furrowing slightly, seemingly silently sensing something. At the same time, Yang Kai's face also sank. Under the investigation of his divine sense, he discovered that there were several tyrannical top masters in front of him, all of whom were rapidly approaching him. The auras exuding from these masters were no worse than Yu Mo's group, and one of them was even comparable to Saintess Nan. In this desolate wilderness, with so many Saint Realm Masters suddenly appearing, it was difficult for Yang Kai to ignore them. Just as Yang Kai was about to pull Enlinger away from these approaching masters, Enlinger suddenly smiled. Enlinger suddenly smiled, her brow relaxing as she called out, "It's my Holy Land's people." Ah! Yang Kai was stunned. "We're saved. Great Elder Shu Hui must have brought reinforcements." Hearing her say this, Yang Kai's brow furrowed. Although he felt it was a bit of a coincidence, it wasn't impossible. If it really was a master from Nine Heaven's Holy Land, then all they needed to do was track Saintess Nan's figure and they would be able to find Enlinger, provided that Enlinger was still alive. Yang Kai instinctively wanted to run away. Yang Kai didn't want to have any contact with the people from Nine Heaven's Holy Land, but as soon as this idea appeared, he suppressed it. If he left at this time, he would have a guilty conscience and would only arouse the suspicions of those experts. On top of that, Yang Kai wasn't sure if Saintess Nan would let him off after he separated from Enling. If she forced Yu Mo and the others to retreat and then went after him alone, he wouldn't be able to resist. There was no doubt that it was safer to stay with the experts in front of him. Enling. Yang Kai suddenly called out. How have I been treating you during this time? How have I been? Enling was startled, but after thinking about it carefully, her cheeks blushed slightly as she whispered, very good. Whether it was on the seabed or inside the mysterious small world. Or perhaps it was because in the demon land, Yang Kai had taken good care of her. Even when they were escaping, he would take her with him, sharing many trials and tribulations with her for nearly a year. Enling had long regarded Yang Kai as a person she could only rely on. Then do me a favor, when you see the people from your holy land, don't mention anything about the holy land. Don't mention anything about the Holy Master, and don't tell them that I learned 3 Nine Heavens divine skills from you. You don't want to be the Holy Master? Enling keenly understood Yang Kai's intentions. Yang Kai slowly shook his head. I already said, even if I don't become the Holy Master, I can still reach that height. If I were to become your Holy Master, I'm afraid it wouldn't even take 300 years for me to become a skeleton. If I die, it doesn't matter, many people will be sad. Are they all women? Enling asked softly, her tone filled with jealousy. Only 1 or 2, Yang Kai said awkwardly. Good, since you're so against it, I won't say anything. When we reach a safe place, you can leave on your own. I'm sure Great Elder and the others won't embarrass you too much. Enling pursed her red lips. Yang Kai nodded lightly, not slowing down his pace as he flew forward to meet them. While the two were talking, several divine senses spread out from the other side and began probing them. After a short while, these divine senses all revealed a kind of joy and excitement, apparently having recognized Enling's life aura. A moment later, several streaks of light entered Yang Kai's eyes and from a distance, someone called out, "Is it Her Highness the Saintess?" "Great Elder." Enling responded quickly. "It really is Her Highness the Saintess." The speed of the several streaks of light increased and in the blink of an eye, arrived in front of Yang Kai and Enling. 4 Saint Realm Masters. The one leading them should be the Great Elder Shu Hui that Enling mentioned, a second-order saint, not the slightest bit worse than Saintess Nan. Wearing a grey robe, his eyes flashed brilliantly and his expression was one of awe and dignity. Behind him were 3 other saints, all of whom should be masters from 9 Heavens Holy Land. Such a tyrannical lineup showed just how strong 9 Heavens Holy Land's heritage was. After all, if the old Holy Master and Saintess Nan had not died, the Holy Land would have had 2 more top masters. Soaring Heaven sect was such a powerful force, but it only had 2 saints, one was Chuling Xiao and the other was a martial uncle Yang Kai had never seen before. Compared to 9 Heavens Holy Land, Soaring Heaven sect appeared somewhat weak. With such a heritage, 9 Heavens Holy Land could be considered one of the strongest forces in the entire world, but after experiencing the death of both the old Holy Master and Saintess Nan, 9 Heavens Holy Land should have declined significantly. With the blessings of the old Holy Master in heaven, Her Highness the Saintess is safe and sound. Shu Hui hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed, a look of relief appearing on his face. Most of the other 3 masters also wore similar expressions. It was obvious that they were all very worried about Enling's safety. After seeing Enling, all of them hurriedly asked about her well-being. Enling simply waved her hand, indicating that she was fine. Saying so, Great Elder Shu Hui's pair of sharp eyes suddenly stared at Yang Kai, a look of approval flashing across his face as he nodded lightly. This should be the future Holy Master, yes? Yang Kai's expression changed slightly as his brow furrowed. This old man saying such words at first sight made Yang Kai feel somewhat at a loss. Enling was also taken aback and quickly shook her head. "No, Great Elder, you've misunderstood. Haha, Your Highness Saintess doesn't need to conceal anything from me. What happened to you in the Outer Islands, I learned from Qian Ning." Shu Hui nodded repeatedly, a look of appreciation and satisfaction flashing across his eyes. Young and promising, actually being able to comprehend 3 of the 9 Heavens divine skills at once is something no previous Holy Master has ever accomplished. Yang Kai was even more surprised in his heart, but on the surface, He remained indifferent, not showing any intention to speak. On the other hand, Ling gawked for a moment before asking in surprise, "Uncle Chen didn't die?" In the outer islands, in order to give Yang Kai and Ling time to escape, Chen Ning and the other mortal realm masters from Nine Heavens Holy Land had launched a suicidal attack on Saintess Nan. Yang Kai had personally witnessed Chen Ning being beaten to a pulp by Saintess Nan, so there was no reason for him to have survived. Shu Hui shook his head sadly. "Dead, in your team, everyone except you died, but before Chen Ning died, he left behind a message. It was because of this that I was able to learn that you had found the future Holy Master. It was also because we followed Saintess Nan's trail that we were able to find you today." This was basically the same as Yang Kai had guessed, but thinking about Chen Ning, Yang Kai couldn't help grinding his teeth. That bastard had died, but before he died he had caused so much trouble for himself. His death was truly not worth regretting. Ling quietly glanced over at Yang Kai and saw that his complexion was not very good. Her heart couldn't help trembling, not knowing what to do. "We shouldn't stay here for long, let's leave quickly." Shu Hui glanced around 100 kilometers away and quickly said. Everyone nodded. Yang Kai's brow furrowed. "That Saintess Nan, is she going to ignore it?" Shu Hui smiled awkwardly. "I'm not afraid you'll laugh at me, but I'm not the Saintess opponent, so even if I wanted to intervene, there's nothing I can do." "Then won't she always chase after me and Ling in the future?" Yang Kai's expression was slightly unhappy. "Once we return to the Holy Land, there won't be any problems. As long as we return to the Holy Land, the Saintess won't chase after us," another Saint Realm Master quickly replied. "That's why we need to hurry back to the Holy Land." When Shu Hui spoke, he looked towards Yang Kai cautiously, as if he respected him very much. The other party's attitude was quite good, so although Yang Kai was unhappy and didn't want to have anything to do with Nine Heavens Holy Land, he had no choice but to follow them. Yang Kai decided to observe them for a while. If they showed any signs of unpleasantness on the road, he would immediately flee and never appear in front of anyone from Nine Heavens Holy Land until he had grown up. However, now that Shu Hui and the others had learned that he had studied the Nine Heavens divine skills, they wouldn't easily let him leave, causing Yang Kai a bit of a headache. With his permission, Shu Hui's expression relaxed, wrapping Yang Kai and Ling in his Yuan Qi before flying off. A short time later, the group left the Demon Land. Saintess Nan's divine sense, which had been locked onto Yang Kai and Ling was also cut off because of the great distance between them. It wasn't until now that Yang Kai breathed a sigh of relief. Flying all the way, Shu Hui seemed to be staring at them intently, but in fact, he was also secretly observing them, his heart filled with amazement. He noticed that Ling seemed to care a lot about Yang Kai, not like a saintess caring about the future Holy Master, but more like a woman caring about a man. From time to time, Ling would carefully observe Yang Kai's expression, and whenever she saw him show a dignified expression, Ling's heart would beat faster. This future Holy Master is amazing. What kind of person Ling was, Shu Hui knew better than anyone else. Every saintess cultivated by the Holy Land, which one of them didn't have eyes above their heads? This future Holy Master being able to make the saintess so obedient in such a short time was a testament to his charm and means. Chapter 791. If this was all there was to it, it could only be said that he had indeed obtained the approval of the saintess. What was even more commendable was that his cultivation was not low, a full second-order transcendent. When they first arrived, Shu Hui had been guessing what kind of cultivation this future Holy Master would have. If he was just an immortal ascension boundary cultivator, with the Holy Land's resources and secret arts, it would only take a few dozen years for him to stand at the peak of the martial Tao, but the reality had greatly surprised him. Such a young second-order transcendent was a rare existence in the entire Tongxian realm. Thinking about the message Chen Ning had left before his death, Shu Hui couldn't help smiling. The more he looked at Yang Kai, the more pleasing he found him. "By the way, Your Highness, how did you manage to escape from the outer islands?" "As far as I know, the outer islands were destroyed by Saintess Nan, and almost no one survived," Shu Hui asked curiously as they flew. Ling glanced over at Yang Kai, and seeing Yang Kai nod lightly, She told him about the ancient ruins at the bottom of the sea. A void corridor? Shu Hui raised his brow and said happily, "The heavens have really blessed my holy land. So, after you came out of the void corridor, you arrived in the demon land, right?" Yang Kai nodded quickly, fearing that Ling would reveal the mysterious small world. After arriving in the demon land, we accidentally fell into Xueli's hands and only managed to escape a few days ago. Demon General Xueli? Shu Hui paled while the other three also wore shocked looks, none of them having expected Yang Kai and Ling to be able to escape from such a powerful character, causing them to feel a burst of admiration. If they had fallen into Xueli's hands, they would likely have died without a doubt. Realizing this, the masters of Nine Heavens' Holy Land became even more respectful towards the future Holy Master, Yang Kai. Flying over various famous mountains and rivers, Shu Hui and the others didn't slow down in the slightest, quickly escaping from Saint Nan's pursuit. Along the way, Shu Hui intentionally or unintentionally inquired about Yang Kai's origins and was somewhat surprised to learn that he was from Soaring Heaven Sect. Soaring Heaven Sect was not a weak force. However, it was quite far from Nine Heavens' Holy Land. They didn't interact much with each other. Soaring Heaven Sect's strength has also soared recently. It seems they have suddenly gained 4 Saint Realm Masters. Speaking of Soaring Heaven Sect, an old man with a pale complexion sighed, "If that's the case, their overall strength is above my Holy Land's. 4 extra people?" Yang Kai smiled happily when he heard this and immediately thought of Tsungyan and Feiyu. It seemed that they had obtained the medicinal liquid of the 1,000-year demon flower from Floating Cloud City. It was indeed of great help to them. I've also heard about this matter. It is said that 2 years ago, the 4 of them took an alchemist with them to Floating Cloud City in neutral territory to compete for the 1,000-year demon flower. If I remember correctly, that alchemist seems to be a young man, about the same age as our future Holy Master. Saying so, Shu Hui swept his eyes over Yang Kai meaningfully. Yang Kai's expression remained indifferent as he pretended not to hear. At this time, no matter what he said, it would only reveal 300 taels of silver. Obviously, Shu Hui had already speculated something. However, this old man didn't have any malicious intent towards him, so Yang Kai wasn't very worried. Seeing Yang Kai not say anything, Shu Hui chuckled, "There's no need to envy others. My Holy Land has a new Holy Master. It won't be long before he can restore his Yuan Qi and perhaps even reach a higher level." Yes. Everyone hurriedly nodded in agreement. All of them had great expectations for Yang Kai. Yang Kai frowned and said, "Friends, I have no intention of meddling with your Holy Master's position. When we arrive at a suitable place, we'll part ways." "Ah!" Shu Hui wore a shocked expression. "You don't want to be Holy Master?" Yang Kai nodded. "I have discussed this matter with Ling many times. I learned your 3 Nine Heavens divine skills without fully understanding them. At most, I won't use these 3 divine skills in the future." The several saints were suddenly dumbfounded. Ling pursed her red lips and also said, "I take a lot of responsibility for this matter. He didn't learn my Holy Land's divine skills. If you want to blame someone, blame me." Shu Hui frowned as he glanced over at Yang Kai and Ling seemingly deep in thought for a moment before suddenly letting out a hearty laugh. "Let's not talk about this for now. Since little brother is from Soaring Heaven Sect, we won't embarrass you. If it's convenient for you, why don't you return to the Holy Land with us as a guest and use your own eyes to see what the Holy Land is like? When the time comes, if you still insist, we won't force you." Yang Kai's expression flashed, knowing that in front of these Saint Realm Masters, he couldn't refuse. Once he refused, they would likely use force. Although they wouldn't hurt him, they would definitely try to take him back to Nine Heavens' Holy Land. Shu Hui had already made enough concessions. With his identity and strength, if he really decided to use force, Yang Kai wouldn't be able to resist. Saying so was enough to show his sincerity. Good. Yang Kai nodded lightly, not wanting to argue with them anymore. Seeing him agree, Ling couldn't help showing a happy expression. The group continued to move forward. Unlike the previous harmonious atmosphere, after learning that Yang Kai had no intention of becoming Holy Master, Shu Hui and the other saints were constantly exchanging glances and divine sense messages, seemingly discussing something. Yang Kai noticed this but simply pretended not to notice. A moment later, the four saints began bombarding Yang Kai with words, describing the strength and foundation of 9 Heavens Holy Land one by one, showing him the various benefits and wonderful prospects of becoming Holy Master in an attempt to tempt him. Yang Kai let these words flow in his ears, refusing to budge, causing Shu Hui and the other saints to feel extremely helpless. However, from their descriptions, Yang Kai did see a behemoth. In 9 Heavens Holy Land, although the lifespan of each Holy Master was short, each Holy Master was able to reach the peak of the Third Order Saint realm. Any force, as long as they had a Third Order Saint, would be considered a top force. Moreover, the way they cultivated their Holy Masters was also different. Inside the Holy Land, there were some places that only the Holy Master could enter, and if one cultivated there, their strength would increase by leaps and bounds. Even Shu Hui and the other saints weren't clear on the mysteries behind this. There were also saintesses to assist them in their cultivation, ranging from 7 or 8 saintesses to 3 or 4. It was difficult for a Holy Master's strength to not improve quickly. Each saintess was selected through a strict selection process, and whether it was in terms of aptitude or beauty, they were all top-notch. These saintesses were completely obedient to the Holy Master and would do anything he wished. It could be said that as long as one became the Holy Master of 9 Heavens Holy Land, not only would they be able to enjoy the blessings of many women, they would also be able to dominate the world. The only drawback was their lifespan. Not only was the lifespan of a Holy Master short, but so was the lifespan of a saintess. The previous Holy Master originally had 6 saintesses, but in the past 50 years, 5 of them had fallen one after another, leaving behind only Saintess Nan. When the previous Holy Master died, Saintess Nan also fell. The previous Holy Master and Saintess had all passed away, so now the Holy Land's hopes were pinned on Yang Kai and Enling Er. How could Shu Hui and the other saints allow Yang Kai to leave so easily? Great Elder, where are Xiao Lian and the others? Enling Er caught a glimpse of something unusual from Shu Hui and the other saints' words and quickly asked in a trembling voice. Shu Hui's face darkened as he hesitated for a moment before replying, "They're all dead. Of the 4 saintesses of this generation, besides you, the other 3 have all been killed by Saintess Nan." Ah! Enling Er couldn't help covering her mouth as her eyes trembled. She had been hoping that the other 3 saintesses would be able to bring back a suitable candidate for the Holy Master position so that Great Elder and the others wouldn't force Yang Kai to become Holy Master, but now that she had received such bad news, she was unable to accept it. However, after thinking about it carefully, the Saintess patrol team did not have any Saint Realm Masters guarding them, so once Saintess Nan found them, there was no way they could resist. She had been lucky enough to meet Yang Kai and learn about the existence of a void corridor in advance, otherwise, her fate may have been the same as the other 3 saintesses. "Your Highness Saintess, please restrain your grief," Shu Hui quickly comforted, "that's why the Holy Land is now counting on you too." Saying so, he stared towards Yang Kai with a burning gaze. "Forgive this old master's rudeness, but I'll call you little brother first. If little brother doesn't agree to become Holy Master, within 100 years, the Holy Land will disappear." Shu Hui's expression was sincere as he spoke in a dignified tone. The other 3 also hurriedly pleaded, "Little brother, please agree to our rude request. The inheritance of the Holy Land cannot be severed in our generation." Yang Kai took a light breath and comforted them. "The tides rise and fall, flowers bloom and wilt, no great force can survive forever. Don't think about it too deeply. Didn't the great demon god, who was as strong as he was back then, also fall? Moreover, I'm not the only one in this world who is suitable to become Holy Master, it's just that Enling Er hasn't found one yet. Little brother doesn't know the whole story, so it's no wonder you say such things. Every saintess of the Holy Land can only choose one Holy Master candidate in their life. Once chosen, they won't be able to sense anyone else. Now that Her Highness Saintess has chosen you, there is no reason for her to choose anyone else. So, the only one who can become Holy Master is me." Yang Kai frowned, suddenly feeling that the situation had become tricky. Shu Hui and the others all nodded solemnly. If little brother doesn't agree, then our 9 heavens holy land can only wait for destruction. We implore little brother to inherit the position of holy master. Don't force me. If you push me too far, I'll turn against you. Yang Kai glared at him. Shu Hui's face changed as he quickly said, "We wouldn't dare." Seeing Yang Kai's impatience, Ling quickly interjected, "Didn't we say we shouldn't talk about this now? Why are you bringing it up again?" Shu Hui smiled awkwardly and self-deprecatingly said, "I'm old and confused. I hope little brother won't take offense. Let's return to the Holy Land first so little brother can experience the glory of my holy land. This old master will definitely entertain you well. Soon, we'll arrive in 3 or 5 days," another person quickly added. Chapter 792. In a picturesque landscape, the world energy here was extremely rich. Around these mountains, there were many exquisite and powerful barriers, isolating this territory from the outside world. 9 heavens holy land. An ancient force that had existed since ancient times, passed down from generation to generation, its strength was quite extraordinary. Even when considering the entire world, it was second to none. However, as soon as Yang Kai arrived here, he felt a sad and solemn atmosphere, probably because the old Holy Master had fallen and the new Holy Master had yet to succeed him. 9 heavens holy land, like Soaring Heaven sect, was also surrounded by mountains, but unlike Soaring Heaven sect's 100-peak array, 9 heavens holy land only had 9 peaks. Although the number was relatively small, the arrangement of these 9 peaks was in accordance with the heavenly way. The spirit array arranged with these 9 peaks as the foundation was no worse than Soaring Heaven sect's 100-peak array, perhaps even better. Whether it was its defensive strength or the speed at which it gathered world energy, it was not inferior to the 100-peak array. Surrounded by these 9 peaks, beautiful palaces were arranged in a picturesque disorderly manner, where thousands of disciples lived. The entire 9 heavens holy land was like a paradise, but it was also bustling with life. Shu Hui and the others returned to the Holy Land with Yang Kai and Ling, but for some unknown reason, they did not return quietly, instead choosing to make a grand entrance to a magnificent palace at the center of the Holy Land. Along both sides of the road, from time to time, some Holy Land disciples would gather and respectfully salute Shu Hui and the others. After seeing Ling, all of them called out the name of the saintess, regardless of whether they were men or women, old or young, their faces filled with worship and fanaticism. As the only outsider here, Yang Kai was obviously the focus of attention. At such a young age, great elder Shu Hui and the others were so respectful towards him, making it easy for others to guess what was going on. Whispers constantly came from both sides as the disciples of 9 heavens holy land quietly pointed towards Yang Kai, speculating whether he was the next holy master that the saintess had found, each of their faces filled with curiosity and excitement. It seemed that as long as Yang Kai succeeded the position of holy master, 9 heavens holy land would be safe. Some of the more astute ones had already determined this matter, and all of them bowed respectfully to Yang Kai. Yang Kai was as calm as ever, his expression unchanged. Shu Hui and the others were secretly amazed, their evaluation of Yang Kai rising again. Although Yang Kai was from Soaring Heaven sect, in the end, he was still quite young. Shu Hui had deliberately led him down this path in order to let him experience the prosperity of the Holy Land and the strength of its disciples in advance, allowing him to gain some understanding of the Holy Land. However, even in the face of such a grand battle, Yang Kai didn't show the slightest trace of fear or panic, instead remaining calm and composed, as if he had experienced a great storm, causing Shu Hui and the others to be somewhat impressed. The temperament of this future Holy Lord seemed to be extraordinary. Shu Hui and the others all exchanged glances, feeling more and more that this person should succeed the position of Holy Master. Along the way, it was lively. In front of a palace made of gold and stone, the ground was cut flat. The palace was majestic and there were many stone pillars in front of it. The stone pillars were carved with dragons and phoenixes, and all kinds of vivid and lifelike images. Arriving here, Shu Hui turned around and gently waved his hand. The onlooking Holy Land disciples gradually dispersed, but everyone's hearts were filled with doubts and curiosity, wondering what Yang Kai's origins were and whether he could succeed the position of Holy Master and save the Holy Land from its current predicament. "Little brother, please." Shu Hui bowed respectfully. Yang Kai sighed helplessly and frowned. "Senior, I just came to visit your Holy Land as a guest. Is there any need to be so formal?" Hearing this, Shu Hui understood that Yang Kai was still rejecting the Holy Land and them, chuckling lightly and nodding. "What little brother says is right, let's go in together." After entering the palace, under Shu Hui's arrangement, everyone took a seat and a short time later, a banquet was set up. From the looks of it, Shu Hui and the others were preparing a welcoming dinner for Yang Kai. At the banquet, Yang Kai didn't show too much impatience, simply taking things as they came, exchanging toasts with Shu Hui and the others. Yang Kai found that as long as this old man didn't mention anything about the Holy Land's Holy Master, he was quite easy to get along with. His strength was profound, his seniority wasn't low, but he was still approachable. However, Yang Kai guessed that this had something to do with Shu Hui's intentions. If it had been any other young man who came here, Shu Hui wouldn't have been so patient. When the wine reached its climax, a group of young girls were called in. Music was played in unison as they sang and danced. Each of these young girls was a heavenly beauty, and although their clothes were thin, they weren't revealing at all. What's more, each of them had a graceful figure and a unique temperament, dazzling anyone who saw them. Yang Kai enjoyed this scene with great interest, his eyes clear, without the slightest trace of obscenity. And Ling who was sitting at the head of the table, saw this and smiled with satisfaction. After some excitement, the banquet ended and Shu Hui and the others also bid Yang Kai farewell. None of them mentioned anything that would displease Yang Kai, the maidservant leading the way for Yang Kai to rest. In a huge room, the curtains were hung high and the floor was covered with a velvet carpet. The walls were decorated with strange stones used for lighting, so that the light in the room was neither dim nor bright. There was an incense burner in the middle of the room, lit with high-grade spices, making people feel relaxed and happy. "Does young lord wish to take a bath?" "There is a bath in the side room, warm water has already been prepared," the maidservant asked softly. Yang Kai glanced over at her, slowly shook his head, and waved her away. The maidservant was also well behaved, gracefully bowing before withdrawing. Yang Kai waited in the room for a moment before walking over to the door and opening it, turning to An who was standing outside hesitantly and asking, "Come in, what are you standing here for?" An lowered her head and walked into the room. Come, let me talk to you." Yang Kai didn't allow her to explain, directly grabbing hold of An hand and dragging her towards the bed. An face blushed slightly, but she didn't resist, allowing Yang Kai to drag her along. A moment later, she sat down on the edge of the bed, looking a little nervous. Yang Kai sat down cross-legged on the bed and stared at her with a wry smile. "Shu Hui arranged for your Holy Land's disciples to surround me while also having those dancers seduce me. It seems he doesn't have any good intentions. He just wants you to inherit the position of Holy Master. How could he be so insidious? On top of that, they aren't just dancers, they are all outstanding disciples of my Holy Land who have undergone a strict selection process. Only when the most distinguished guests arrive will they appear to perform a dance." And Ling pursed her red lips and stared at him with some resentment. "Do you not want to be Holy Master?" "Not at all." Yang Kai shook his head, frowning for a moment before asking, "Tell me the truth, is what Shu Hui said before true?" "What?" "After you chose me, you can't choose anyone else." And Ling gently nodded. "Your Holy Land is really strange. No matter what, I am still an outsider. Holy Master is such an important position, why don't you choose from within?" And Ling smiled lightly. "This has been the rule since ancient times. Presumably you've heard that every Holy Master of our Holy Land is brought back by the saintesses." "I've heard of it before. It's basically like this, but there's only one exception. I remember that it was recorded in the ancient records that about 900 years ago, the Holy Lord of that generation was originally a disciple of the Holy Land, and the holy maidens all had a reaction to him, so that disciple became the Holy Lord of that generation, but since then, such a situation has never happened again. If only the Holy Land's disciples could become Holy Master, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to find them, Xiao Lian and the others wouldn't have." Saying so, her expression became sad and her eyes became red. My condolences. Yang Kai didn't know how to comfort her. And Ling wiped the corners of her eyes and took a deep breath to calm herself down. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "If you insist on not becoming the Holy Master, I'll help you talk to the Great Elder and see if they can make an exception." "Don't say anything, it's useless." Yang Kai shook his head. "Since Shu Hui and the others have already decided that I am the only candidate, it doesn't matter who tries to persuade them." "Then what about you?" "It's difficult." Yang Kai sighed. Although Shu Hui and the others didn't dare to do anything to him, their resolute determination gave Yang Kai a headache. If it weren't for the short lifespan of 9 Heavens Holy Land's Holy Master, Yang Kai wouldn't mind becoming the next Holy Master. After becoming Holy Master, he could deal with that old dog Shu Hui and vent his hatred. However, due to the drawbacks, Yang Kai had no choice but to stay away from the position of Holy Master. And Ling also looked a little embarrassed, her brow furrowing as she softly said, "In any case, you should stay here for now. Saintess Nan may be outside, so it's not safe for you to go out. Wait a few days and see how things go." "Ian, that's all I can do." Yang Kai nodded. "Right, I'll have to trouble you to pass a message to Soaring Heaven Sect for me. Tell them I'm fine and that they don't need to worry." "Rest assured, I'll deliver your message," and Ling nodded. "Many thanks. No need to be so polite." And Ling smiled, her mood seemingly improving as she got up and said, "Then you rest, I'll go back first. If you need anything, just tell me, I'll have Shu Hui and the others arrange it for you." After Ling left, Yang Kai's expression became dignified as he quietly released his divine sense to investigate his surroundings. Unsurprisingly, there were many masters arranged around the palace, all of them quietly lying in wait, likely monitoring Yang Kai's every move. Yang Kai sneered lightly but didn't care, knowing that this was all arranged by Shu Hui. However, he didn't have any plans to leave 9 Heavens Holy Land right now. As Ling said, Saintess Nan may be waiting outside. Once he left the 9 Peaks barrier, he would be walking right into a trap. Before he had a practical way to get rid of Saintess Nan, Yang Kai didn't want to act rashly. 9 Heavens Holy Land's people didn't have any malicious intentions towards him, they just wanted him to become the next Holy Master. As long as he stubbornly refused, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yang Kai decided to consolidate his recently broken through cultivation. Making up his mind, Yang Kai's mood became much better. Chapter 793. Using his divine sense to penetrate every inch of his skin, Yang Kai began examining the changes in his physique's yuan qi. After breaking through to the second-order transcendent realm, Yang Kai felt that the density and purity of his yuan qi had improved significantly. Moreover, his physical body had also become much stronger in those battles of life and death. Yang Kai's spiritual energy had also improved greatly. Under the constant nourishment of the 6-colored soul-warming lotus, this breakthrough had allowed Yang Kai's soul cultivation to experience a gratifying growth. Yang Kai felt that his current spiritual energy should not be inferior to a first-order saint in a head-on clash. Coupled with the tyrannical and mysterious power of his conflagrated knowledge sea, if an ordinary first-order saint really chose to fight him in this manner, they would likely suffer a great loss. Yang Kai also had the Soul Battle Hall, an artifact that could forcibly drag his enemy's soul avatar into his space and engage in a divine sense battle. All of these factors had greatly increased Yang Kai's confidence. The misfortunes and setbacks he had encountered over the past year had all turned into motivation and opportunities for him to become stronger. Any expert would only be able to gain insights and experience in life and death battles that they would not normally be able to obtain. It was only when they were on the brink of death that they would be able to clearly understand some things that they would not normally be able to understand. It could be said that every successful cultivator had experienced life or death situations and possessed a spirit that did not fear death, allowing them to become stronger and stronger in the face of adversity. This kind of heaven's favored child who grew up in a greenhouse would be fine if their path to maturity was smooth sailing, but if they encountered even the slightest setback, they would be unable to recover and would eventually die young, fading out of sight. Yang Kai belonged to the former. Since he began cultivating, his path had been full of thorns and thorns. Along the way, he had cut his way through countless obstacles, wandering between life and death countless times, allowing him to possess a cultivation that far surpassed that of his peers. Everything he had now could be said to have been achieved by Yang Kai step by step. It was not luck. Nor was it a coincidence. Realizing all of this, Yang Kai's state of mind gradually underwent some subtle changes, becoming more confident, feeling that as long as he was given time, he would be able to stand at the peak of the martial Tao and overlook all living beings. Restraining his excitement, Yang Kai continued to examine his body. He was surprised and pleasantly surprised. The amount of golden blood flowing through his body seemed to have increased significantly. Li Rong and Han Fei had both said that once the blood flowing through one's body completely turned gold, it was equivalent to having the blood of the demon god, giving one the same level of power as the great demon god. The great demonic god was only a legend. At that time, he was recognized as the #1 expert in the world by all three races. During his time, no one dared to challenge his prestige. The golden demon god's blood had endless uses. Because of the demon god's blood in his body, Yang Kai's body was so strong and his recovery ability was so abnormal. It was hard for Kai Yang to imagine how strong his body would become when all the blood in his body turned golden. The ancient demon clan's physique was extremely tough. It was also because of the demon god's bloodline. Compared to them, he was undoubtedly more orthodox. Purer. Immersing his consciousness into the black book space and communicating with the divine tree, Yang Kai's body began circulating its own secret art and began cultivating. As Yang Kai grew, the divine tree also continued to evolve and grow. With Yang Kai's permission, the divine tree would absorb a drop of myriad drug liquid every day. With this assistance, its consciousness seemed to have become much clearer and its IQ also increased. Now, not only could it clearly communicate with Yang Kai, it would even take the initiative to ask him some questions. Yang Kai was like a child, answering its questions wholeheartedly. Time passed quickly, and more than 2 months had passed since Yang Kai arrived at Nine Heavens Holy Land. After such a long time, Yang Kai gradually became accustomed to Nine Heavens Holy Land. Besides not being able to leave easily, the treatment he received here was quite good. Great Elder Shu Hui and the other elders seemed to receive him with the highest standard, not only providing him with a large number of pills for cultivation, but also sending several young and beautiful maidservants to take care of him. They even gave Yang Kai many of Nine Heavens Holy Land's martial skills and secret arts for his reference. Yang Kai didn't refuse anyone, and besides the maidservants he didn't touch, everyone else was treated well, immersing himself in cultivation all day long, rapidly consolidating his second-order transcendent cultivation. Shu Hui and the other elders also came to visit Yang Kai from time to time, chatting with him about daily life, never mentioning the matter of succeeding the position of Holy Master. Occasionally, when they had some free time, Shu Hui and the other elders would take Yang Kai out to tour the Holy Land's 9 peaks, showing him the beauty and depth of the Holy Land. It was obvious that they were hoping to impress Yang Kai in this way, so he would take the initiative to accept this position. Unfortunately, after 2 months, nothing had happened, causing Shu Hui and the other elders to become anxious and gradually lose their patience. At the top of one of the 9 peaks, inside a magnificent building, the Holy Land's elders and protectors had gathered, headed by Shu Hui, and were discussing something. The entire Nine Heavens Holy Land originally had a powerful lineup. The old Holy Master was a peak 3rd Order saint, while Saintess Nan and Shu Hui were both 2nd Order saints. As for the remaining elders and protectors, Yu Ying, Luo Sheng, Shikuan, Meng Tianfei, and Cheng Yu Tong were all 1st Order saints, of which Yu Ying and Cheng Yu Tong were both women. For a great force to have so many Saint Realm Masters was extremely rare even when considering the entire world. Great Elder, what is the attitude of the future Holy Master? Yu Ying was a beautiful middle-aged woman. She wore a bright red dress that vividly outlined her plump and mature body. Her skin was sparkling and translucent, and her bearing was outstanding and elegant. She had a pair of watery almond-shaped eyes that glistened as she lightly opened her red lips and asked. Hearing her question, everyone cast concerned glances towards Shu Hui. Shu Hui frowned and sighed, "He's still the same, refusing to budge. Although I have deliberately not mentioned this matter during this time, I can feel that he has no intention of becoming the Holy Master. This little brat is quite interesting. Luo Sheng wore a look of amazement as he muttered, "Who in this world doesn't want to become the sect master of our 9 heavens holy land, reaching the heavens in a single bound? Why is he acting so indifferent when it comes to us? It's almost as if we're forcing him to do so. Pay attention to your words, that's the future holy master, not some little brat." Cheng Yu Tong, who was wearing a white dress and giving off a cold aura, shot Luo Sheng a glare, causing the latter to smile awkwardly before glancing over at Great Elder Shu Hui. Seeing that he didn't show any signs of anger, Luo Sheng felt relieved. "But it really is strange," Cheng Yu Tong frowned slightly. "Could it be that he doesn't like my holy land?" "How could that be?" Shakuan snorted. "Although my holy land's old holy master has fallen, it is still a great force second to none. Whether in terms of fame or strength, it is still superior to his soaring heaven sect, so how could he not be interested in it?" "That's possible," Shu Hui suddenly said. "During this time, I led him to tour the 9 peaks and showed him the Holy Land's heritage. Although I heard him praise me a lot, I didn't feel as shocked as I imagined. It's as if in his eyes, all of this is nothing more than a passing cloud. Ah, this little brat, is the future Holy Master really like this?" Luo Sheng was extremely surprised. "Great Elder, do you know what he likes? We can cater to his interests," Meng Fei suggested. Meng Tianfei suggested, "The Holy Land can't be without a leader. It's been almost a year since the previous Holy Master passed away. It's fine if the future Holy Master hasn't been found, but now that he's already in the Holy Land, the disciples are also discussing all day long why the succession ceremony hasn't been held yet. If this continues, the disciples won't have the heart to cultivate, which isn't a good thing." Yu Ying also nodded. "If we know what he likes, we can keep him here. At the very least, we need to make him feel a sense of belonging to the Holy Land. Only then can we ensure the Holy Land's prosperity be guaranteed. He should like strength." Shu Hui's eyes flashed a light. "After observing him for a while, I found that his pursuit of strength is the only constant. Besides that, everything else seems to be just a distraction to him. Even the few maidservants I arranged for him to stay with him, he hasn't even glanced at them. Is there a man in this world who doesn't like beautiful women?" Luo Sheng's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, a look of disbelief filling his face. "Do you think everyone is like you, lustful?" Yu Ying coldly snorted, showing a displeased expression. Luo Sheng suddenly felt awkward. Could it be that he likes Her Highness the Saintess, that's why he's behaving like this? Cheng Yu Tong suddenly thought of a possibility. In front of the woman they admired, no man dared to show his naughty side, often deliberately showing off his heroic side in order to attract their attention. If it was because of Saintess and Ling Yang Kai acting like this wasn't unusual. Everyone present was experienced and had a deep understanding of this. Hearing this, they nodded their heads continuously. Shu Hui smiled bitterly. "That's not the case, it's the exact opposite. It's as if Her Highness the Saintess has fallen in love with him, but he only treats her as a friend." Poor Ling Yu Ying and Cheng Yu Tong couldn't help feeling a little distressed. They had both watched Ling grow up, so naturally they had some feelings for her. The future Holy Master is not an ordinary person. Shu Hui suddenly sighed. "I've never seen such a young second-order transcendent, have any of you?" Everyone shook their heads. "Soaring Heaven Sect, an incredible character has appeared, but what makes me feel strange is that I've never heard anything about him before. Such a young hero should already be famous throughout the world, yet he has remained completely unknown. It's really strange. Moreover, he was able to escape from Demon General Xueli's clutches with the Saintess. I can't even begin to imagine how he did it. He even managed to escape from Saintess Nan's clutches." Chapter 794. As they spoke, everyone suddenly quieted down, their hearts filled with shock. Before Yang Kai spoke, no one had realized it, but now that they thought about it, everyone felt it was inconceivable. A second-order transcendent repeatedly escaping from death was either heaven-defying luck or astonishing means. Everyone was more convinced of the latter possibility, making it even harder for them to guess Yang Kai's depths. Before the Holy Master of Nine Heavens' Holy Land inherited the position of Holy Master, there were many different kinds of people, some with high and some with low aptitude. Even if this generation's saintess only found an immortal ascension boundary cultivator, they were confident they could cultivate him into a top master, not to mention that Yang Kai's aptitude and strength were hundreds of times better than they had expected. No matter what, we must let him inherit the position of Holy Master. Without the Holy Master's spirit ring, there are many places in my holy land that cannot be opened. This matter cannot be delayed. Shu Hui suddenly said resolutely. But isn't he unwilling? Yu Ying frowned, feeling a little embarrassed. Even if he isn't willing, he has to. We have so many Saint Realm Masters, do you think we can't do anything to him? Shakuan said impatiently. Do you want to use force? Yu Ying narrowed her eyes as she stared at Shakuan coldly. That's what I meant. Shu Hui took a deep breath. His attitude is already very firm, waiting any longer will do us no good. Instead of waiting, we might as well take a gamble and send him into the Holy Tomb. As soon as these words came out, everyone's brow twitched, as if the Holy Tomb contained unparalleled dangers, causing all the Saint Realm Masters present to feel extreme dread. What if he can't come out? Cheng Yu Tong asked faintly. Ling is the only saintess left in this generation, and since she has already made a choice, it is impossible for her to find another candidate for us. If he can't come out, then my holy land can only seal itself. Wait for the next generation of saintesses to mature. The next generation of saintesses had not yet been selected, so it would take at least 20 years to cultivate them. 20 years might not seem long, but if the Holy Land did not have a Holy Master and could not obtain the Holy Master's spirit ring from the old Holy Master who entered the Holy Tomb, many places would be unable to function properly. In these 20 years, it was very likely that such a colossus would be dragged down. They couldn't afford to wait, so they hadn't dared to make any rash moves for the past 2 months. However, Yang Kai's attitude was so resolute. Shu Hui had no choice but to carefully consider this matter. But he hasn't fully comprehended the Nine Heavens' divine skills. How can he enter? It is said that the Holy Tomb is the place where the Nine Heavens' divine skills were born. If he wants to enter, he must be proficient in them. He has already comprehended 3 moves, which is enough. This is for the sake of our holy land. Even if he is the future Holy Master, when it is time to make a sacrifice, we must make a sacrifice. Shu Hui shouted, if he can come out smoothly, he will surely be very grateful for our decision today. That's right. Shakuan and Meng Tianfei nodded in agreement. There had never been a Holy Master who didn't feel a sense of belonging to the Holy Land after coming out of the Holy Tomb. The Holy Lords who were brought back by the Saintess were able to contribute their entire lives to the Holy Land. He worked his heart out. His exhaustion was definitely related to the secrets in the Holy Mausoleum. Although no one knew what was hidden inside the Holy Tomb, all of them firmly believed in it. Yu Ying and the middle-aged woman both glanced at each other, and although they were faintly worried, they didn't say anything more. The discussion came to an end. Everyone quickly took action to prepare for Yang Kai's entry into the Holy Tomb. The next day, Kai Yang, who was meditating in the palace, suddenly opened his eyes. In his perception, there was a strange feeling. He had sensed that Shu Hui and the others had come again. Moreover, this time was somewhat different from the past. The people who had come weren't just the few he was familiar with, there were also a few he had never met before. Although these people were concealing themselves well, their breathing and aura revealed a solemn atmosphere, causing Yang Kai to become somewhat vigilant, wondering what they were planning. A moment later, there was a knock on the door. Yang Kai responded casually and the door was pushed open, revealing Shu Hui and the other elders and protectors. Yang Kai couldn't help raising his brow, faintly feeling that Shu Hui probably had something to say to him. It was definitely related to the Holy Master, otherwise, he wouldn't have summoned all of the Holy Land's masters here. After exchanging some pleasantries, Shu Hui introduced Yang Kai to each of the people he had never met before. Yang Kai nodded to these people in greeting. Great Elder, what brings you here today? Yang Kai's eyes flashed as he got straight to the point. I'd like to ask little brother to accompany us to a certain place. Shu Hui smiled lightly and said, I seem to have visited all of the 9 peaks. Is there anywhere else I can go? There is. The Holy Land has many secrets that little brother usually doesn't know about. The place we're going to this time is one of them. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as he faintly asked, since it's a secret, isn't it inappropriate to open it to outsiders? Little brother is not an outsider, and no one can enter that place except little brother, Shu Hui said seriously. Oh. Yang Kai's brow rose slightly. No one can enter except for me. Isn't that a place only your holy master is eligible to enter? Haha, I can't refuse, can I? Shu Hui's expression became slightly awkward as he cupped his fists and said, I hope little brother can forgive us and follow us. Yang Kai sneered as he swept his eyes over the Saint Realm Masters in front of him, secretly wondering what his chances of escaping were if he were to suddenly attack them, but soon he rejected such an idea. There were too many people here, each of them a Saint Realm Master. Yang Kai felt that even if he displayed his full strength, he wouldn't be able to escape from here. Considering all this, Yang Kai's expression relaxed as he shrugged his shoulders and said, Then, lead the way, I'll follow you. Hearing this, everyone's face lit up with joy, Shu Hui even more so smiling as he quickly said, Please. He had thought that today there would be some unpleasantness between him and this future holy master and had even made up his mind that if the other party really resisted, even if it meant offending him, he would bring him into the holy tomb. But he hadn't expected Kai Yang to be so flexible, saving him a lot of embarrassment. After all, this was the future holy master. If he were to make things difficult for him today, there was no guarantee he wouldn't make things difficult for him in the future. Leaving the palace, everyone gathered around Yang Kai and quickly flew towards a nearby mountain peak. These people seemed to be following him casually, but in fact, they had blocked all of Yang Kai's escape routes. Once Yang Kai showed any signs of discomfort, they could instantly take action to restrain him. Great Elder, can you tell me where we are going this time? Yang Kai asked on the way. Shu Hui hesitated for a moment before replying, We are going to the Holy Tomb. Holy Tomb? Yang Kai was surprised. Why does it sound like a place where people are buried? Shu Hui nodded. My Holy Land's previous holy masters, when they realized that they were nearing the end of their lives, would enter the Holy Tomb and wait for death to arrive. Therefore, that place is indeed a place where people are buried. It is the tomb of my Holy Land's previous holy masters. Isn't that place very dangerous? Yang Kai asked with a smile, seemingly just asking casually. For us, it is indeed very dangerous. Anyone who is not a holy master who enters that place will die, but for little brother, it is the final test. What do you mean? Shu Hui hesitated for a moment. Yang Kai immediately said, If you can't say, don't say. I have no interest in other people's secrets, especially big ones. The more I know, the more dangerous it will be. Shu Hui smiled awkwardly. It's not that I can't say, but since things have reached this point, this old master won't hide anything from you. Little brother only knows that the previous holy masters were all brought back by the saintesses, but what you may not know is that each time the saintesses brought back more than one person. Because my Holy Land has several saintesses each generation, each of them will find a suitable candidate for the position of holy master according to their own vision and secret art, then bring them back to the Holy Land, and through the saintesses' indoctrination, they will comprehend the 9 heavens' divine skills and enter the Holy Tomb. The only one who can come out of the Holy Tomb alive is the true Holy Master candidate. Then I'm not very lucky. This time there's no one to compete with me. Yang Kai said sarcastically. Shu Hui laughed dryly. You could say that. What's inside that place? Yang Kai asked coldly. This old master doesn't know. I only know that it is the burial place of all the previous holy masters. Other than that, I don't know anything else. Not only me, but even the protectors and elders also don't know anything about that place, because only those who have comprehended the 9 heavens' divine skills are eligible to enter. So, the 9 heavens' divine skills are the key to entering that place? Yang Kai asked thoughtfully. Probably, but what's certain is that it is not safe inside. Little brother, when you enter, you must be careful not to encounter any accidents. Cheng Yu Tong suddenly added, although there are dangers, there are also great benefits. Benefits? Yang Kai glanced over at her and suddenly became interested. What kind of benefits? Tell me in detail. Cheng Yu Tong smiled lightly. How would I know? It's just that the old Holy Master chose to cultivate there, and every time he came out, his strength would improve. On top of that, it is said that when the old Holy Master entered the Holy Tomb, he obtained a great deal of gains. That's right, the artifacts used by the old Holy Master were all taken from the Holy Tomb. Those were Saint-grade high-rank artifacts. There aren't many of them in this world. The artifacts used by each generation's Holy Master were not bad, all of them were buried in the Holy Tomb along with them. That will depend on little brother's opportunities. Perhaps you will be able to obtain a suitable artifact from there, Shu Hui said with a smile. Saint-grade high-rank artifacts. You should have said so earlier. If you had told me about these things earlier, I would have entered the Holy Tomb long ago. There would have been no need for you to use both hard and soft tactic. Yang Kai suddenly became excited. Everyone was stunned. I like to take risks the most. Yang Kai grinned, his face filled with an inexplicable light. The more dangerous a place is, the more I like to explore it, especially a place like the Holy Tomb where the dead are buried. Shu Hui's face twitched, suddenly finding himself unable to see through Yang Kai. Chapter 795. At the foot of one of the 9 peaks, Shu Hui and the others led Yang Kai to a stop. Looking around suspiciously, Kai Yang saw a huge bluestone in front of him. It looked as if it had been cut, flat and neat. The bluestone was covered with moss, and 2 majestic characters were engraved on it. Holy Tomb. This was obviously the entrance to the Holy Tomb. Yang Kai couldn't help narrowing his eyes. Although he couldn't see any clues, he could still faintly feel some hidden energy fluctuations coming from the bluestone in front of him. Shu Hui stepped forward and formed a few mysterious seals, causing the bluestone to suddenly become blurry. A moment later, a hole appeared in the center of the bluestone. Yang Kai was slightly startled and quickly called out, "A void corridor." Shu Hui gently nodded. "Yes, from here, you will arrive at the Holy Tomb, the burial place of all the previous Holy Masters. It is a mysterious small world independent of this world, and every Holy Master must pass the test here before inheriting the throne. Little brother, after you enter, you must be careful. In addition, no matter what, you must bring out the Holy Master Spirit Ring worn by the previous Holy Master. It is the key to my Holy Land's future. No matter what, you must come out alive." Yu Ying solemnly exhorted. "The future of the Holy Land is counting on you." Cheng Yu Tong lightly pursed her thin lips. Everyone else also wore looks of expectation and worry as they stared towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai glanced over at them and grinned meaningfully. "I think you'd better pray that I don't come out." "Why is that?" Shu Hui was puzzled. Yang Kai's eyes flashed like lightning as he stared at them coldly. "If I come out alive, I'll make you pay." Everyone was stunned, only now realizing that Yang Kai was still very disgusted with them for forcing him into the Holy Tomb, but before they could say anything, Yang Kai had already plunged into the void corridor. This future Holy Master, his tolerance isn't very good. Is he really going to settle accounts with us? Shikuan frowned. Shu Hui's expression also fluctuated as he sighed. A young man's temperament is still not mature enough. In any case, it's the Great Elder's idea. I'm just here to make up the numbers. If the future Holy Master really blames me for this, I'll definitely be punished. Great Elder will take care of everything. Meng Tianfei had a gloating expression on his face. Everyone looked at him with disdain. Within the Holy Mausoleum. As soon as Yang Kai entered, the void corridor behind him closed. His surroundings were filled with green fluorescent light, as if he was in the mortal realm. A chilly wind blew past his ears, and he could vaguely hear the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves, which made him shudder. It wasn't very bright. He could barely see, and the heaven and earth energy in this place was unbelievably rich. It had almost condensed into snow-white clouds that were as thick as cotton wool. This mysterious small world was quite a magical place. Yang Kai had never seen a place with such rich world energy. It was almost comparable to the best earth veins. No wonder the old Holy Master of 9 Heavens' Holy Land chose to enter retreat here. With such rich world energy, There was no need to take any pills or use crystal stones. All one needed to do was open their bellies wide open and absorb it. This was indeed a cultivation treasure land, except for the somewhat gloomy atmosphere. While vigilantly observing his surroundings, Yang Kai couldn't help paling. In his perception, balls of extremely ferocious energy were suddenly born in all directions. This energy was rapidly rushing towards him. The birth of this energy was extremely strange. It was as if it had always been there, waiting for Yang Kai to arrive so it could attack. Before Yang Kai had time to react, these energy masses had surrounded him. Yang Kai quickly condensed his yuan qi, but soon, he discovered that something was wrong. This was because these balls of energy only surrounded him and didn't cause him any harm. Frowning, Yang Kai carefully examined these energy masses, and after a moment, he couldn't help feeling a little surprised. He found that there were a total of 9 energy masses, each of which contained a profound and mysterious aura, as if they were man-made, but also as if they were naturally formed by heaven and earth. Among these energy masses, there were 3 that Yang Kai was somewhat familiar with. Carefully releasing his divine sense, Yang Kai probed one of these energy masses and immediately found traces of the 9 heavens' divine skills. The profound heavenly sword. Yang Kai's expression changed as he faintly guessed what this energy mass was, tentatively probing the other energy masses, and sure enough, he found the imprisoning heaven lock and great heavenly attraction. These 3 divine skills were the ones Yang Kai had learned from Enling, but he had not expected to see them appear here. So, the 9 energy masses in front of him were the 9 moves of the 9 heavens' divine skills. Yang Kai frowned slightly as he speculated in his heart, almost certain that his guess was correct. That old man Shu Hui had also said that if he wanted to enter the Holy Tomb, he had to learn the 9 heavens' divine skills, because only by relying on them could he safely enter. These 9 energy masses in front of him should be obstacles that prevented him from moving forward. Without breaking through them, it would be impossible to enter the Holy Tomb. Yang Kai instantly understood the mysteries of this Holy Tomb, and after thinking about it, simply sat down cross-legged and stared at the energy masses in front of him that contained the profound heavenly sword intent. The 9 heavens' divine skills were very strange. They could be used as martial skills or soul skills by Yuan Qi. This was something that no martial scripture or secret skill could achieve. If he wanted to break through the obstacles in front of him, the only way was to display the 9 heavens' divine skills and break through the blockade of these energy masses. Yang Kai's spiritual energy burst out and his invisible divine sense transformed into a giant sword that shot towards one of the energy masses. Soundless. Even Yang Kai's powerful divine sense attack was like a stone sinking into the sea, disappearing as soon as it entered the energy masses. Yang Kai frowned and used the profound heavenly sword a few more times, rushing towards the specific energy cluster, but there was no response each time. Yang Kai suddenly felt that things might not be as simple as he had thought. Carefully recalling what Shu Hui and the others had said, as well as the various news he had received from 9 Heavens' Holy Land, Yang Kai's eyes lit up as he thought of a possibility. Could it be that he wasn't proficient enough in using the 9 Heavens' divine skills and hadn't grasped the mysteries behind them, so he was unable to break through the blockade of these energy masses? His 9 Heavens' divine skills had been learned from Enling, so to what extent she had comprehended them, he could only comprehend them to the same extent. Enling was still young, so it was natural that her comprehension of the 9 Heavens' divine skills was not deep enough. Yang Kai had seen Saintess Nan use the profound heavenly sword with his own eyes and knew that it was on a completely different level from his own. It was obvious that Saintess Nan's use of this divine skill had reached a high degree of proficiency. Moreover, before succeeding the position of Holy Master of 9 Heavens' Holy Land, they had to enter the Holy Tomb. The cultivation of these people was not necessarily as high as Yang Kai's, nor was their strength necessarily greater than Yang Kai's, but they had all passed the test of the Holy Tomb. From this, it could be seen that this difficulty had nothing to do with one's strength, only with one's comprehension of the 9 Heavens' divine skills. Considering all this, Yang Kai calmed down and no longer hurried to display his 9 Heavens' divine skills, instead immersing his consciousness into the energy masses that contained the profound heavenly sword, relaxing his body and carefully perceiving them. As time passed, Yang Kai's harvest was huge. His consciousness had seen the birth and display of the profound heavenly sword countless times, allowing him to gain a deeper understanding of its hidden mysteries. Soon, he had reached a level where he could completely memorize the profound heavenly sword and imprint it into the depths of his soul. When Yang Kai opened his eyes again, he found that the energy masses he had immersed his consciousness in had become traceable, allowing him to grasp their hidden mysteries and patterns. Pushing his spiritual energy once again, Yang Kai summoned the profound heavenly sword. This time, however, the purest form of the nine heavens' divine skills was several times more profound than what Enlinger had comprehended. With a cracking sound, the moment the energy masses were bombarded by Yang Kai's divine sense, they suddenly collapsed. A winding path appeared in front of Yang Kai, leading directly into the depths of the holy tomb. Yang Kai smiled lightly, instantly understanding what mysteries were hidden in the holy tomb. If someone who had not practiced the nine heavens' divine skills wanted to enter this place, they would likely be torn to shreds by the nine masses of energy, but those who had practiced them were different. As long as they could crack any one of them, they would be able to find a way out. Moreover, the more they cracked, the brighter and safer the way out would be. Shu Hui was right. The nine heavens' divine skills were indeed the key to entering the holy tomb. Yang Kai didn't rush forward and instead turned his attention to another mass of energy. In any case, he had been forced into the holy tomb by Shu Hui and the others. If he didn't fish for some benefits here, wouldn't he be letting himself down? The nine heavens' divine skills were exquisite and divine skill. Having seen Saintess Nan use them so many times, Yang Kai had long ago become envious. Now that such a great opportunity had appeared in front of him, Yang Kai wasn't willing to miss it. Not to mention, the more he cracked, the safer he would be inside. Making up his mind, Yang Kai immediately began to spy on the mysteries of the other two nine heavens' divine skills he had learned. 3 or 5 days later, the imprisoning heaven lock was cracked, and another 3 or 5 days later, the great heavenly attraction was cracked. From then on, Yang Kai's speed suddenly slowed down. He had learned the first 3 moves from Enlinger, so he was quite proficient in them. But as for the remaining 6 moves, he hadn't touched them at all, so he naturally had to start from scratch. Fortunately, the profound mysteries contained within these energies were enough for him to comprehend. There was no flowing time, Great Emperor, when it came to cultivation. Yang Kai was practicing the nine heavens' divine skills inside the holy tomb, so he was completely unaware of the passage of time. However, the elders and protectors waiting outside the holy tomb felt as if every day was like a year. A few days after Yang Kai entered, everyone was still waiting expectantly, hoping that he would suddenly emerge from the holy tomb, bring back the Holy Master's spirit ring, and inherit the Holy Master's legacy. 10 days later, everyone began to worry. Although they didn't say anything, everyone was guessing that Yang Kai had encountered some kind of difficulty inside. A month later, the atmosphere became solemn. 2 months later, everyone's expression became gloomy, and from time to time, sighs could be heard. 3 months, 4 months. The number of elders and protectors who remained here grew fewer and fewer, and everyone seemed to feel that it was impossible for Yang Kai to appear again. Chapter 796. Every Holy Land's Holy Master entering the Holy Tomb to undergo the test was a major event, so there were many historical records about it. Shu Hui and the other elders naturally knew how long it would take. The fastest one to safely exit the Holy Tomb took 15 days, while the slowest one only took 2 months. However, it had been 4 months since Yang Kai entered the Holy Tomb and there was still no sign of him, causing Shu Hui and the other elders to wonder if Yang Kai had really died inside. All the elders and protectors sighed, none of them having the patience to continue waiting. They all held important positions and had trivial matters to attend to every day, so how could they continue to wait here? Even Shu Hui, who was in charge of this matter, left after 4 months. Only Enlinger continued to wait outside the Holy Tomb. 3 days after Yang Kai entered the Holy Tomb, Enlinger learned of this matter and immediately rushed over, complaining to Shu Hui and the other elders, but was powerless to stop what had already happened. During these 4 months, she had been waiting, but even though she had been anxiously waiting, Yang Kai had yet to appear. On this day, Yu Ying and the other beautiful women came together. From afar, they saw Enling'er standing outside the holy tomb. They glanced at each other and sighed in sorrow. That girl is still waiting here, Yu Ying sighed softly. Weren't we too impatient? Not only did we ruin the Holy Land's future hope, we also ruined a young man's beautiful future. Cheng Yutong's pretty face also flashed a trace of guilt and sadness. What's the point of saying all this now? When the great elder suggested it, none of us objected. Everyone is responsible for this. Everyone is responsible. Yu Ying slowly shook her head. Fortunately, the person this little girl sent to Soaring Heaven Sect was stopped by Great Elder. Otherwise, if Soaring Heaven Sect had known about this matter, they would never have let this matter rest. Such an outstanding young man, no matter which sect he joins, would be vigorously cultivated. Cheng Yutong also wore a look of fear. Nine Heavens Holy Land was currently facing external and internal troubles. If they were to become enemies with Soaring Heaven Sect, they would likely have to seal off their 9 peaks and completely isolate themselves from the outside world. If that was the case, even the next generation Saintess would not be able to participate. Did we overestimate him, or did he have bad luck? Yu Ying sighed. In the past, when the Holy Masters chose to enter the Holy Tomb, the old Holy Master would give them a few pointers, but this time he is exploring alone. It must have been hard on him. Let's go and have a look, Cheng Yutong said and stepped forward. A moment later, the two of them arrived in front of the Holy Tomb. Enling'er turned her head upon hearing the commotion and nodded to them with a complicated expression as a greeting. In the past, Enling'er was the closest to these two female elders. But now, her expression was somewhat cold. Clearly, she still cared about the fact that they had sent Yang Kai into the Holy Tomb. Looking at each other, Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong didn't know how to comfort her and just stood there. Staring at the blue stone at the entrance of the Holy Mausoleum, he felt a little embarrassed. After a while, Yu Ying said, "Ling'er, don't wait. He probably won't be able to get out." Ling'er slowly shook her head. "Listen to me, go back and rest. You've been waiting here for 4 months already." Cheng Yutong also tried to persuade him. "He will come out," and Ling'er suddenly said solemnly, her tone firm. Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong were stunned and glanced at each other, the former forcing a smile. "How do you know? There has never been a Holy Master candidate who has been in the Holy Tomb for so long and still be safe." And Ling'er's expression was proud. What others can't do doesn't necessarily mean he can't. You haven't seen his ability yet, so it's natural to think so. I think he will definitely come out. The two beautiful women's eyes lit up and tentatively asked, "What kind of ability does he have that can make you look at him so highly?" Although they felt that Yang Kai's aptitude was extraordinary and his strength wasn't bad, the two beautiful women had never seen Yang Kai fight before, so naturally they didn't know his depths. And Ling'er was different. She had been with Yang Kai for a long time, so she should have some understanding of his background. Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong were suddenly curious and wanted to ask her about it. "I'm not too sure, but he always surprises people. And he said, even if he doesn't enter my Holy Land, in less than 30 years, he will be able to reach the same level as the old Holy Master." "Same level as him?" Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong both looked surprised and asked, "Wouldn't that be the peak of the Third Order Saint realm?" And Ling'er nodded seriously. Yu Ying smiled. Now that he's a Second Order Transcendent, wanting to break through to the Third Order Saint realm in 30 years is probably impossible. There aren't many Third Order Saints in the entire world. Cheng Yutong also smiled, the two women obviously thinking that Yang Kai was just boasting. Both of them were experienced masters and knew how difficult it was to break through to the Transcendent realm. The aptitude of these two women could be considered outstanding even in the entire world, otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to reach the Saint realm. Even if Yang Kai was more powerful than them, it was impossible for him to achieve such an impossible feat in today's world. Which Third Order Saint Realm Master was not several hundred years old? Even if they looked young, in fact, each of them had experienced the passage of time under the flowing time Great Emperor and had only reached their current achievements through the accumulation of time. Yang Kai looked to be only in his 20s, but saying he would reach this height in 30 years, didn't that mean he would be able to stand at the peak of this world in just 50 years? Reaching the Saint Realm at the age of 100 was already rare. So a Third Order Saint in his 50s was simply impossible. Young and frivolous. Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong both pursed their lips and smiled, thinking that Yang Kai didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. What are you laughing at? And Linger looked at them angrily. If he says he can, then he definitely can. Just wait, in 30 years, he will definitely reach the Third Order Saint realm. Let's talk about that after he leaves that place. Yu Ying frowned slightly as she looked towards Linger worriedly, hesitating for a moment before asking, Linger, do you like him very much? Otherwise, why would you speak up for him like this? And Linger blushed, feeling somewhat embarrassed. It's not that I dislike him. After a while, Linger whispered softly, I just feel very guilty for harming him because of me. If I hadn't allowed him to comprehend the 9 heavens divine skills at that time, he wouldn't have suffered such misfortune and wouldn't have been forced into the holy tomb by you. He should have had a better future. This is our decision, it has nothing to do with you, Yu Ying sighed, taking responsibility for this matter. 2 elders, can I discuss something with you? And Linger suddenly raised her head and asked solemnly. Speak. Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong nodded lightly. If he can come out of the holy tomb, can you let him go? He really doesn't want to be bound here. And Linger smiled bitterly. Perhaps the position of Holy Land Master is an incomparably great temptation to anyone in this world, but to him, it is a kind of shackle. Binding him here is of no benefit to him. You don't want a holy lord who doesn't think about the Holy Land, right? Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong frowned slightly as they glanced at each other, neither of them willing to agree casually, suddenly feeling a little embarrassed. And Linger continued, don't you think he won't come out? Then just pretend he's dead. The dead won't reveal the secrets of the Holy Land, so what's the point of agreeing to this? This will have to be discussed with Great Elder. Yu Ying smiled reluctantly, we can't make that decision. I can agree. A loud voice suddenly called out from the side, and with a flash of light, Great Elder Shu Hui's figure appeared in front of the holy tomb. Great Elder, Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong quickly saluted. Shu Hui nodded lightly and turned to Linger, Your Highness Saintess, what you just said, I can agree. Really? Linger smiled happily. With Elder Yu and Elder Cheng here as witnesses, Shu Hui firmly nodded, of course, the premise is that he can come out and is unwilling to become the Holy Master. He shouldn't be willing. That's not certain. Shu Hui smiled mysteriously, perhaps when he comes out, there will be no need for us to ask, he will ask to inherit the position of Holy Master himself. There has never been a Holy Master who entered the Holy Tomb and then came out without thinking about the Holy Land. Yu Ying and Cheng Yutong's beautiful eyes lit up as they smiled. Although they didn't know what mysteries were hidden inside the Holy Tomb, in fact, as Great Elder said, every Holy Master who entered the Holy Tomb and then came out had already regarded it as their home and would devote themselves wholeheartedly to the Holy Land, even if they had a sect or family they couldn't part with. Great Elder also thinks he can come out. And Linger's beautiful eyes brightened. I hope so. Shu Hui slowly shook his head, but I don't see any hope. Just wait, he will surprise all of you. And Linger gently clenched her fists. The 3 of them stared at her in a daze, none of them knowing where her confidence came from, thinking that Yang Kai, who had been in the Holy Tomb for more than 4 months, would be able to return safely. Inside the Holy Tomb, Yang Kai gently exhaled and sent out a burst of exquisite energy from his knowledge sea towards the final mass of energy floating in front of him. With a crisp cracking sound, this mass of energy, which contained the mysteries of the 9 heavens divine skills, shattered and the various mysteries contained within it poured into Yang Kai's mind, allowing him to thoroughly understand this final technique. Profound heavenly sword, imprisoning heaven chain, great heavenly attraction, encompassing heaven net, heaven covering hand, punishing heaven spear, grand heavenly shield, flickering heavenly shadow, scarlet heaven arrow. The 9 heavens divine skills rolled through Yang Kai's mind in great detail. These 9 divine technique were incomparably profound, far more so than any martial skill or soul skill Yang Kai had ever seen. After such a long period of enlightenment and study, Yang Kai had not only mastered these 9 divine skills, but had also greatly benefited the refinement of his Yuan Qi. Imperceptibly, his Yuan Qi had become more condensed and pure. The world energy aura here was extremely rich, so it could be said that Yang Kai's cultivation over the past few months had not only allowed him to master the 9 heavens divine skills, but also his own cultivation. Chapter 797. Every time he cracked one of the 9 heavens divine skills, the path in front of Yang Kai became more spacious. After breaking all 9, the entire mysterious small world seemed to have become much brighter, allowing Yang Kai to see directly into the holy tomb. Sweeping his divine sense around, Yang Kai suddenly showed a surprised expression. Originally, with the world energy here being so rich, Yang Kai thought that this mysterious small world would occupy a vast area, but only now did he discover that it was at most the size of a small town. This was the smallest mysterious small world Yang Kai had ever seen. In such a space, Yang Kai didn't know where so much world energy came from, but it was as if there was some kind of energy source that was constantly pouring into this mysterious small world. No matter how one tried to absorb it, it wouldn't have any effect. Inside the holy tomb, there were all kinds of dangerous barriers, all of which exuded hidden energy fluctuations and dangerous auras. Once someone accidentally touched one of these barriers, they would likely suffer a terrifying attack. Yang Kai being able to see through all of these barriers wasn't because of his keen eyesight, but rather because he had cracked all 9 divine skills before. The more he cracked, the more barriers he could see through. Yang Kai had cracked all 9 divine skills and was very familiar with them, so naturally he could see through the mysteries of the holy tomb at a glance. Not far away, there were several pale skeletons lying on the ground, their flesh and blood long gone. Even their robes had been reduced to dust. These skeletons should belong to those who had entered the holy tomb but failed to pass the test and died tragically here. These skeletons could be found throughout the holy tomb, numbering at least a few dozen. In addition to these skeletons, there were also huge coffins lying quietly in various corners of the holy tomb. These coffins were strangely shaped and varied in color, giving them a terrifying and gloomy appearance. Yang Kai secretly condensed his yuan qi, preparing for any unexpected situations as he walked towards the nearest coffin. After a while, Yang Kai arrived in front of this coffin. The coffin wasn't closed, and inside it lay the body of a middle-aged man who didn't seem to be very old. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. His eyes were attracted by the bronze ring on the man's left hand. After standing next to the coffin for a long time and confirming that it had not been tampered with, Yang Kai stretched out his hand and touched the ring on it. If his guess was correct, this ring should be the Holy Master Spirit Ring Shu Hui mentioned. Every old Holy Master would bring the Holy Master's Spirit Ring into the Holy Tomb when they reached the end of their lifespan. The next Holy Master's greatest task was to bring this ring back from the Holy Tomb. Because this ring was related to the operation of the entire 9 heavens Holy Land, without it, there were many places that were impossible to access. Furthermore, judging from the condition of this person's body, he should have died not long ago. He was definitely the previous generation's Holy Master. A Third Order saint died after only 300 years. Throughout the entire world, only 9 heavens Holy Land would have such a situation. Looking at that person, Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh. He felt that if he became the owner of this place, this would be a portrayal of himself 300 years later. Seeing this, Yang Kai couldn't help snorting. Removing the ring from the previous generation's Holy Master's finger, Yang Kai carefully examined it before secretly shaking his head. He couldn't recognize what this ring was made of, but it should be an artifact with some kind of special function because there was a lot of extremely obscure energy flowing inside this ring that had not weakened in the slightest even after tens of thousands of years. The way this energy was flowing was quite strange, faintly following some kind of inexplicable law, but it was also impossible to trace. While examining this ring, Yang Kai suddenly felt a devouring force coming from inside it, as if a giant invisible hand had reached out from it, breaking through the shackles of space and directly reaching into the depths of Yang Kai's knowledge sea, causing his soul to tremble. Great heavenly attraction! Yang Kai paled as he immediately recognized that the energy coming from this spirit ring contained the mysteries of the 9 heavens divine skills. Hurriedly trying to resist, however, before he could, a faint light flashed across Yang Kai's knowledge sea and disappeared. In the next moment, Yang Kai felt that there was a subtle connection between him and this Holy Master Spirit Ring. His face extremely gloomy, Yang Kai stood in place, staring at the Holy Master Spirit Ring in his hand, wishing he could just destroy it. Great heavenly attraction could affect another's soul brand and control it. Yang Kai had used this trick to deal with Ling when they were at the bottom of the sea. After obtaining her soul brand, Yang Kai could control Ling's life and death, as well as spy on her mental activities. But at this moment, this Holy Master Spirit Ring had actually been imprinted with great heavenly attraction, branding his own soul brand into it. Needless to say, Yang Kai knew that this was the previous generation's Holy Master's doing before his death. A third-order Saint Realm Master's method was something Yang Kai couldn't resist, nor could he remove. This also meant that Yang Kai couldn't throw away this ring even if he wanted to. Inside this ring was his soul brand, so once it was obtained by an enemy, it was tantamount to controlling Yang Kai. Yang Kai couldn't help cursing. Originally, he had planned to take the Holy Master Spirit Ring out and hand it over to Shu Hui in exchange for his release, but now that the Holy Master Spirit Ring was his, he couldn't hand it over to an outsider. His mood suddenly became terrible. Before Yang Kai could recover though, a huge amount of energy rushed out from the body of the previous generation's Holy Master, who was sleeping in the coffin in front of him. At the same time, inside the Holy Tomb, from the coffins placed in all directions, a similar amount of energy shot out and rushed towards Yang Kai. It seemed that Yang Kai had become the source of their attraction. In the blink of an eye, Yang Kai felt the defenses of his knowledge sea being directly torn apart and all of the energy poured into his knowledge sea, causing his consciousness to tumble and his head to ache. Yang Kai's face went pale and he didn't dare to show the slightest neglect, quickly sitting down cross-legged and immersing his consciousness into his knowledge sea, manifesting his soul avatar. Looking around, Yang Kai's knowledge sea was filled with turbulent waves, as if because of the invasion of these energy streams, his knowledge sea was spontaneously resisting. Like a raging inferno, the sea roared and surged forward, rolling up waves that rushed towards the uninvited guests. These energy streams seemed to be very afraid of Yang Kai's conflagrated knowledge sea and were all desperately trying to avoid them. While dodging, layers of invisible spiritual energy fluctuations spread out from these energy streams and attacked Yang Kai's soul avatar. Yang Kai's face filled with suspicion as he stared unblinkingly at the energy streams that rushed into his knowledge sea, his mind gradually stabilizing. The roaring and surging sea also gradually calmed down. Yang Kai could see that these energy streams were all the wills left behind by the previous Holy Masters of Nine Heavens' Holy Land. Strictly speaking, they were their souls. However, for some unknown reason, at this moment, these souls didn't have much consciousness, as if they were simply following the wishes they had set before their deaths and mechanically completing their tasks. These souls didn't have any intention of harming him, instead they were constantly emitting spiritual energy fluctuations, attacking his soul avatar, as if they were trying to instill something into him. Yang Kai tilted his head and thought for a moment before opening his soul to accept the spiritual energy these people were trying to instill into him. A moment later, Yang Kai's expression became strange. Unlike what he had thought, these people's souls weren't trying to instill some kind of secret art or secret skill into him, more like they were trying to brainwash him. After a short while, Yang Kai began to change his opinion of Nine Heavens' Holy Land, secretly thinking that staying here wasn't a bad idea. Becoming a holy master not only gave him great power, he could command tens of thousands of disciples, but he could also reach the peak of the martial Tao in the shortest time possible. Compared to wandering the outside world alone, experiencing the bitterness of life, this was undoubtedly much better. Thinking of this, Yang Kai began to relax and become more relaxed. At the same time, he also felt that the souls of these previous holy masters were much more intimate, so he couldn't help wanting to listen to their teachings. Feeling a chill, Yang Kai quickly sealed his soul avatar and drove out all the distracting thoughts, staring coldly at the soul that was lingering around him. So that's how it is. Yang Kai sneered softly, his eyes filled with malice. He had always been curious as to why the holy masters brought back by the saintesses would suddenly choose this place, even if their lifespans would be shortened. It turned out that in the Holy Tomb, these souls had induced them to do so. If it weren't for Yang Kai's extraordinary spiritual energy, he likely would have followed in the footsteps of those holy masters and become one of them in less than 2 hours. The spiritual energy fluctuations emitted by the souls of these previous holy masters had a very strong soothing effect. Under this effect, anyone who came here would feel a sense of belonging to Nine Heavens' holy land, making it their life's goal. However, of all the holy master candidates who entered the holy tomb, the strongest had not exceeded the first-order transcendent realm, so their souls were naturally not very strong. Yang Kai was different. His cultivation was not low, and his spiritual energy far surpassed his physical strength, so he was able to resist these purposeful inducements to a certain extent. In addition, Yang Kai didn't want to become the holy master of a holy land, so he quickly sobered up from this comfortable state. Understanding the mysteries of these souls, Yang Kai suddenly became fearless. If it were any other kind of barrier, he may have some scruples, but the last thing the souls of these previous holy masters should do was tear through his knowledge-seized defenses and rush into it. In this world, Yang Kai was the only master. Yang Kai tried to communicate with these souls, but couldn't get any response. The previous holy masters had all died long ago and their souls had somehow managed to remain behind, but they had no consciousness of their own and were simply fulfilling their last wishes. Layer after layer of spiritual energy fluctuations continued to be released, carrying all kinds of comforting and inducements in an attempt to shake Yang Kai's soul avatar. Yang Kai gradually became impatient and with a single thought, the demon eye of annihilation suspended above his knowledge sea slowly opened. This golden pupil contained an endless majesty as it stared down indifferently. In the next moment, a golden light flashed. With a series of crackling sounds, the countless masses of soul fragments belonging to third-order saints were instantly purified. Chapter 798. Inside the Holy Tomb, Yang Kai sat in meditation for a few days, absorbing the remnant essences of the Nine Heavens Holy Land's previous holy masters into his own. The harvest was unimaginably huge. Although his cultivation had not changed, because all of these essences were the insights of third-order saints, Yang Kai instantly gained a clear understanding of his future path. As long as his physical strength could keep up, Yang Kai could continue on this path without any worries. It could be said that before he reached the third-order saint realm, he would not encounter any bottlenecks every time he tried to break through. This kind of good fortune was the dream of almost every cultivator. The reason why it was so difficult to break through to the next realm was because every time a cultivator reached a certain critical point, they would encounter bottlenecks and shackles of varying degrees of difficulty. If they couldn't grasp the mysteries of these bottlenecks, they would not be able to break through. Countless cultivators in the world were stuck at their bottlenecks their entire lives, unable to take even a single step forward. Among them, there were even many gifted children with outstanding aptitude. Perhaps when they were young, they would blossom with extraordinary brilliance, causing the world to exclaim in admiration, but once they reached their limit, they would become stagnant. If they were lucky enough to break through their bottlenecks, their strength would soar. Therefore, bottlenecks were something that every cultivator feared. No matter who it was, they would encounter them more or less on their path of growth. Yang Kai had also encountered them before, and every time, he had experienced all kinds of dangers, breaking through the confusion between life and death. But from now on, he would no longer have to worry about this problem. Before he reached the third-order saint realm, his cultivation path would be smooth and smooth. Gently taking a deep breath, Yang Kai stood up, suddenly feeling that the whole world seemed to have become somewhat different. Immersed in it, he felt as if everything was in his grasp. From the coffin beside him, some hidden energy fluctuations were transmitted. Yang Kai carefully probed them. A moment later, a smile appeared on his face, sending out his divine sense. A stream of light suddenly shot out from the coffin and flew straight towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and allowed the stream of light to land firmly on his palm. Looking closely, this stream of light was actually a silver leaf. The meridians on the leaves were distinct and lifelike, as if they had just been plucked from a tree. However, this seemingly simple leaf was emitting a shocking energy fluctuation. A saint-grade high-rank artifact. Shu Hui and the others had said that the previous generation's holy master possessed a top-grade artifact, and there were only a few such artifacts in the entire Tongxian realm. This silver leaf still had the soul brand of the previous generation's holy masters, but Yang Kai had used his demon eye of annihilation to purify and absorb the souls of the previous holy masters here. Naturally, he could control the previous generation's divine spirit brand. Not only the previous generation, but everyone's divine spirit brand could be controlled by him. In other words, if there were any artifacts left in these coffins, he could easily obtain them without worrying about being injured by the power of these artifacts. Yang Kai had never seen such an artifact before, but there were many different kinds of artifacts. Their shapes were all different. This silver leaf should have a unique power, so he didn't refine it. Yang Kai didn't know much about it, so he temporarily put it into the black book space. Avoiding the various dangerous barriers inside the holy tomb, Yang Kai excitedly walked towards the second coffin. He wanted to sweep this place clean. Exploring the coffins one by one, Yang Kai found that almost every coffin had some kind of harvest. These old holy masters were all top masters, so the artifacts they used were naturally not bad. All of them were saint-grade artifacts, most of them were saint-grade mid-rank, a few were saint-grade low-rank, and the only saint-grade high-rank artifact was the silver leaf. It was obvious how rare such artifacts were. Although these artifacts were quite good, Yang Kai didn't care much about them. Those swords, spears, staffs, and halberds weren't suitable for him, so if he encountered a life-or-death battle, he might as well use his bare hands. The only thing that caught Yang Kai's attention was a crimson-colored artifact armor. This artifact armor looked extremely beautiful and was light to the touch, definitely capable of withstanding the attacks of a Saint Realm Master without breaking. This was a woman's artifact armor that Yang Kai had obtained from a woman's skeleton inside one of the coffins. This coffin was different from the others. Inside it lay two skeletons, one of which was the Holy Master of the Holy Land while the other was the Saintess of that time. The two of them were closely huddled together, sharing life and death, causing Yang Kai to sigh a little. This artifact armor would be a good gift, whether it was given to Su Yang or Xia Ningqiang, it would provide a tyrannical defense. Thinking so, Yang Kai put away the artifact armor. A moment later, Yang Kai came to a stop in front of the last coffin. What made him feel slightly strange was that there didn't seem to be any trace of an artifact inside this coffin, and unlike the other coffins, this one was tightly shut and had a thick layer of spirit arrays surrounding it. After countless years, these spirit arrays had shown signs of loosening. For some reason, as soon as Yang Kai arrived here, the blood in his body began to flow faster and his heartbeat became stronger, as if there was something inside this coffin that was guiding his blood. Frowning, Yang Kai slowly shook his head. Because of the spirit arrays surrounding this coffin, he couldn't sense the mysteries inside at all. However, this coffin was the only one here that was closed. Obviously, this holy master didn't want others to open it and investigate the secrets hidden inside. If not for this strange feeling, Yang Kai wouldn't have gone looking for trouble, but now he was very concerned about this coffin. Once this thought came to him, he could no longer suppress it. After thinking about it for a while, Yang Kai's expression became firm as he raised his hand and patted the coffin, yuan qi gushing out. A barrier placed by a third-order saint, logically speaking, should have been impossible for Yang Kai to break, but this holy master had been dead for who knows how many years, so this barrier should not have been at its peak. It took Yang Kai less than half an hour to completely destroy these spirit arrays. The light dimmed and the spirit arrays on the coffin lost their function. Yang Kai took a deep breath and reached out to lift the lid. A skeleton that had long decayed beyond recognition immediately entered Yang Kai's eyes, and after seeing the appearance of this skeleton, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling shocked. There were many fractures and injuries on the bones of the skeleton. Almost 80% of the bones in the skeleton were broken. Yang Kai was deeply shocked. Every holy master lying here was a peak third-order saint, and this one was obviously no exception. When one's strength reached this level, whether it was the strength of their physique or the toughness of their bones, they would become extremely powerful. There were very few attacks that could break them. However, the scene in front of Yang Kai showed that before this holy master died, he had fought a fierce battle with a powerful enemy. Regardless of whether he won or lost, this holy master must have been beaten very miserably. The reason why he died was definitely related to these injuries, What kind of person could beat a third-order Saint Realm Master to death? While in a daze, Yang Kai's eyes were attracted by a dark bottle placed on the chest of this skeleton. Before this holy master died, his hands had been clasped together, holding this dark bottle close to his chest. There was also a spirit array placed on this bottle, seemingly to protect what was inside. A terrifying evil chi spread out from this bottle, causing Yang Kai to suddenly feel as if his body and mind were being tortured. Asterisk kachacha. Asterisk, a crisp sound rang out. It seemed that because Yang Kai had broken the spirit array of the coffin, the thing inside the bottle had become unstable and was now violently struggling to break out. The dark bottle was unable to withstand such an impact, and in an instant, countless cracks appeared on its surface. The light of the spirit array on the bottle also flickered strangely. Yang Kai just watched indifferently, not showing any intention of stopping this. He had a feeling that the thing inside this bottle was somehow related to him. Somehow, he had sensed some clues. Asterisk catcher, asterisk accompanied by a crisp sound, the dark bottle suddenly shattered into pieces and a golden light appeared, exuding a dazzling brilliance that illuminated the entire holy tomb. The various spirit arrays that had been placed all over the holy tomb were disintegrated by this golden light and lost their effectiveness. With the golden light as the center, the murderous and evil aura surged into the sky. All of the coffins were blown away and exploded in midair. The skeletons of the saint sovereigns were also turned into dust in an instant. Yang Kai stared intently at this golden light, his expression fluctuating as he muttered, "Demon god golden blood?" This golden light exuded a strong bloody smell, no doubt it was blood. On top of that, it was as dazzling as melted gold, filled with an evil chi that caused even Yang Kai to tremble. Now that it was being held in the hand of a holy master from Nine Heavens' holy land, besides demon god golden blood, Yang Kai couldn't think of any other possibility. Why was this drop of demon god golden blood here? What was the relationship between the legendary great demon god and this holy master? Yang Kai's thoughts raced, but before he could figure out what was going on, the demon god golden blood floating in front of him seemed to have found its target and suddenly disappeared, leaving behind a golden afterimage as it rushed directly towards Yang Kai's brow and imprinted itself between his eyebrows before disappearing. In the next instant, Yang Kai's face became ferocious. He felt as if his blood was boiling and roaring as the golden blood in his body seemed to have been activated and was exploding. The terrifying power of this explosion spread through his meridians and physique, and in just a moment, Yang Kai's body was covered in wounds, his 5 viscera burning, and the pain was unbearable. The dazzling golden light enveloped Yang Kai, and Yang Kai couldn't help roaring towards the heavens. Above the mysterious small world, the wind and clouds began to change as a thick blood chi filled the air, filling the entire mysterious small world with a strange mixture of gold and blood red. The unyielding golden skeleton wriggled and emitted a cracking sound. The demonic chi stored inside the golden skeleton uncontrollably gushed out, transforming into demon crests that covered Yang Kai's skin, imprinting themselves into his flesh and blood before disappearing. The golden and red mysterious small world was suddenly covered in darkness, no longer able to see a trace of light. In this darkness, Yang Kai grit his teeth and endured, his whole body trembling as his skin began to crack and red blood flowed out, soaking the ground. However, in front of his eyes, it was as if a picture scroll was slowly unfolding, and inside this picture, an earth-shattering battle was taking place. Chapter 799. Yang Kai didn't open his eyes to watch, nor did he use his divine sense to sense anything, but the scene of this great battle was still being transmitted to his consciousness. Soon, Yang Kai's attention was completely absorbed by this battle, gradually forgetting his own pain and focusing all of his attention on it. The two sides involved in this battle were both top-level masters, each of their moves giving off unimaginably powerful energy fluctuations that seemed capable of destroying the heavens and earth. On one side was a master filled with demonic chi, while on the other side was a handsome middle-aged man whose every movement exuded an air of calmness. The appearance of the former made Yang Kai feel somewhat familiar, and after thinking about it for a while, his eyes lit up as he suddenly understood who this master filled with demonic chi was. Great Demon God. The most powerful great demon god in legend. Yang Kai had once seen a statue of Great Demon God in the mysterious small world where the ancient demon clan lived, one that was very similar to the one in front of him, almost identical. Great Demon God was a legendary existence, one that no one in his era could compare to, and was recognized as the strongest master under heaven. Under his leadership, the entire demon race was filled with powerful soldiers and horses. Even the human race, which had the largest population, had to avoid him. Since then, none of the rulers of the demon race dared to call themselves great demon gods, all of them simply calling themselves demon commanders to show their worship and respect to great demon god. It was said that there was once a demon commander who was not very tactful and proclaimed himself great demon god, but before he could enjoy this supreme power for a few days, he was besieged and killed by his subordinates. It was obvious what kind of influence Great Demon God had left on the demon race. Judging from the scene in front of him, this Great Demon God should still be in the process of growth and had yet to reach his peak. Even so, the number of people who could fight against him at that time was extremely rare. This middle-aged man should be one of them. The Holy Master of 9 Heavens' Holy Land. His true body that had been broken in countless places. Yang Kai couldn't help but feel a little excited. He didn't know why he was able to see this battle that happened countless years ago, but he could guess that it had something to do with the drop of Demon God's blood. Perhaps the Demon God's blood carried the memories of the Great Demon God, allowing him to see this. Both Great Demon God and the Holy Master at that time were third-order saints, so this battle should have been a showdown between peak saints. No one knew how the war started, but it had already started when Yang Kai saw it. Again and again, they clashed fiercely against each other. Both of them unleashed their full strength. They fought from the ground to the sky, from the sky to the starfield, and then from the starfield back to the ground. The scene changed extremely quickly, and the strength of the two was also evenly matched. It was impossible to determine the victor in a short period of time. But Yang Kai was fascinated by it. There wasn't the slightest bit of impatience. Witnessing such an earth-shattering battle was of great benefit to his growth. The younger generation of great forces would often be taken by their seniors to watch a battle between a higher realm cultivator in order to gain some combat experience and comprehend some things they couldn't comprehend in their daily cultivation. It could be said that what was placed in front of Yang Kai was an opportunity. The adaptability of the two in battle and the way they released their energy made Yang Kai ponder, carefully observing the situation and verifying it with his own. Time passed by, and after an unknown amount of time, the balance between the two who were originally evenly matched was gradually broken. The Holy Master, perhaps too eager to win or for some other reason, was unable to use any of his moves. Soon, he was at a disadvantage. The Great Demon God's posture was wild. Like a madman, he took advantage of this opportunity to kill. Yang Kai watched with relish. The scene in front of Yang Kai's eyes suddenly changed. Probably because too much time had passed, the memory of the drop of Demon God's blood was not very coherent. By the time Yang Kai glanced over again, the outcome of this battle had already been decided. The Holy Master coughed up a mouthful of blood, his face pale as he transformed into a streak of light and quickly fled from Great Demon God. Before leaving, he took a drop of the Great Demon God's golden blood with him. The Great Demon God just stood in place, staring coldly and arrogantly at his disheveled figure, not showing any intention to pursue. A moment later, his figure flickered and disappeared. The scene in Yang Kai's mind was cut off. Yang Kai let out a long breath and slowly calmed the excitement in his heart. He had never expected that he would be able to see the Great Demon God with his own eyes in this way. Since coming to Tongxian Realm, Yang Kai had heard many legends about this man from various people and knew that he had an inextricable relationship with this man. The unyielding golden skeleton was his body, the demon eye of annihilation was his eyes, and even the wordless black book was created by him. Unfortunately, he had died so many years ago that Yang Kai had never been able to see it. Now, Yang Kai had finally gotten what he wanted. The wealth left behind by the Great Demon God had been of great help to Yang Kai's growth, but Yang Kai felt that he would not be bound by the Great Demon God's path. On the contrary, Yang Kai was convinced that he could walk a path that the Great Demon God could not and surpass his achievements. Only in this way could he live up to the huge amount of resources he had, and only in this way could he prove that everything he had was not something the great demon god could have arranged. However, after watching such a great battle, Yang Kai finally understood what was going on with that coffin. The damage to the Holy Master's body should have been left behind by the great demon god. After that battle, he returned to the Holy Land and should have died soon after, leaving behind the demon god Golden Blood because he was unwilling to accept it. But today, it had aroused Yang Kai's curiosity, allowing him to obtain the demon god Golden Blood and watch that fierce battle. Inside the holy tomb, Yang Kai slowly opened his eyes. At some point, the darkness that had filled this place had receded, returning to its original gloomy environment. Probing his body, Yang Kai was a little surprised. Although there were many wounds on his body, with his powerful resilience, these injuries were not important. What he was concerned about was that because he had fused with the drop of demon god Golden Blood, the blood flowing through his veins seemed to have undergone some significant changes. The golden blood had become more abundant, and the demonic chi that filled the unyielding golden skeleton had also become purer. Faintly, Yang Kai even comprehended a divine technique that belonged to the great demon god, soul fission technique. By pouring a huge amount of soul energy into one's soul brand and nourishing it with a special method, one could produce another soul. This soul could then enter another body and become an avatar outside of one's true body. Depending on the degree of refinement of this avatar, it could possess various abilities of the real body. The strongest avatar could display up to 80% of the real body's strength, perhaps even more. Yang Kai's eyes lit up as he suddenly remembered the soul clone of the demon general Meng Ji he had encountered in his own world. Inside the evil cavern, Yang Kai had used the demon sealing chain to kill Meng Ji's soul clone and had even been threatened by him at that time. It was not until he came to Tongxian realm that Yang Kai understood what kind of person Meng Ji was and how powerful he was. So, what Meng Ji had used at that time should have been a soul fission technique, allowing his avatar to descend into the evil cavern, but compared to the great demon god's soul fission technique, there was still a big difference. Meng Ji's soul clone was simply too weak. Yang Kai guessed that Meng Ji might have obtained some ancient books left behind by the great demon god and obtained some clues from them, but he wasn't very proficient in them, nor was he orthodox. Cultivating the soul fission technique didn't only have this benefit. Once a soul clone was formed, it was equivalent to having two souls inside one's knowledge sea. With two souls cultivating at the same time, the growth of one's spiritual energy would also be twice that of the average person. Of course, the initial price to pay was definitely huge. Constructing a soul clone required a huge amount of spiritual energy. However, for Yang Kai, this wasn't a problem. The six-colored soul-warming lotus was constantly nourishing his soul, so his spiritual energy could be replenished at any time. Looking around, Yang Kai saw that the holy tomb was a complete mess. It seemed that because he had entered this mysterious small world this time, it had been completely destroyed. From now on, any holy master who entered this place would likely not be able to obtain any benefits and would no longer be brainwashed by their predecessors. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a bit ashamed. Although he had been forced to enter this place by Shu Hui and the others, the holy tomb was still one of the foundations of Nine Heavens' holy land. If they were to learn that he had destroyed this place, they would likely not let him leave easily. At the very least, Yang Kai would have to accept the position of Holy Master before they would give up. What's more, the Holy Master Spirit Ring had been branded with his own soul brand. Yang Kai felt a headache coming on as he secretly felt that this time, unless he had a falling out with Nine Heavens' holy land, there was no way to end this matter. After sighing for a while, Yang Kai didn't rush to leave the holy tomb and instead decided to stay here and begin cultivating the great demon god's soul fission technique. Inside his knowledge sea, Yang Kai condensed his own soul brand and then poured his spiritual energy into this brand using a special method to nourish and construct his soul clone. The consumption of spiritual energy was enormous, and even with the six-colored soul-warming lotus, he couldn't make ends meet. Fortunately, Yang Kai had a number of pills in his black book space, some of which could be used to supplement his spiritual energy. Yang Kai also had the myriad drug liquid, so he didn't need to worry about replenishing his spiritual energy. The sun and moon flew by and time passed. Inside the holy tomb, there was no daylight, so Yang Kai didn't want to leave. He only hoped that with the passage of time, he would be able to fade away from the sight of Shu Hui and the others, so he decided to stay here and cultivate. It wasn't until his soul fission technique reached the minor accomplishment stage and another soul appeared in his knowledge sea that Yang Kai stopped cultivating. There was no need for him to worry too much about the rest. As time passed, his soul clone would become more and more tenacious and powerful. Unfortunately, it didn't have its own consciousness or emotions. After it grew to a certain extent, Yang Kai could find a suitable vessel and pour his soul clone into it to create his own soul clone. The soul clone created this way would have no consciousness or thoughts, but Yang Kai could manipulate it to go to places that were inconvenient for him. Perhaps it would play an unexpected role in certain situations. Slowly standing up, Yang Kai released his divine sense and searched for the exit of the holy tomb. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.